Chapter 25-28. Your master is very busy, so you'd better take me to the place first. Ling Han laughed and got into the carriage. Although the dragon hadn't transformed into a human form, its intelligence wasn't low. It naturally knew that Ling Han's strength was beyond its imagination. It didn't dare to resist. After letting out a dragon roar, its 4 claws rose into the air and immediately moved as fast as lightning. Ling Han opened the window and looked at the constantly changing scenery around him. He nodded to himself. Dragons were indeed creatures born to fly. Their speed was really amazing. However, Ling Han looked carefully at a few pieces of special metal on the dragon's body. They were glowing and flashing with runes. He immediately understood that the dragon's speed was fast, but it wasn't fast to the point where he was astonished. Instead, it was because of the few pieces of metal, which were definitely treasured weapons, that increased the dragon's speed. That was why it was so fast. This was enough to keep up with Ling Han's full speed. After more than an hour, Xian Ying's abode was already in sight. It wasn't a problem that Ling Han hadn't been here before, because there were too many carriages parked outside the cave abode. The horses pulling the carriages were all different, but they were all at the Celestial King level. There were peacocks, green phoenixes, giants, and of course pure humans. As long as one had strength, even ants could be high and mighty. And if one encountered a stronger existence, even a human Celestial King would be reduced to a mount. So it wasn't strange that a Celestial King dragon was a mount. The dragon stopped and restrained its aura. Although it was a dragon, and at the Celestial King level, it didn't have any sense of superiority here. If it dared to be arrogant, anyone could slay it. It carefully lay on the ground. After being a slave for so long, it had forgotten the pride of a Celestial King. Hey, isn't this Zhuokai's dragon carriage? That prodigal is here too. With his personality, he'll definitely offend a few female Celestial Kings today. At most, he'll be beaten up. After all, there's a quasi-celestial master ancestor. Everyone has to give him face. Lord Zhuobing is a top genius of our academy. He's fought in the foreign battlefields for countless years, and finally entered the ranks of quasi-celestial masters. He's only half a step away from true transcendence. This lord is such a hero. How could he have such an unworthy descendant? Haha, if every generation produces a dragon, then wouldn't the fiery frost plain belong to the Zhuo family? Many people recognized Zhuokai's dragon chariot. It was obvious that this guy was not a common show-off in the martial courtyard. Even before seeing him, he had already attracted the heated discussion of everyone. Of course, all of them were negative. 2 young men came out to welcome them. They were Zhuokai's gang of scoundrels. They both had quasi-Empyrean ancestors in their families. One was called Wu Ju, and the other was called Xushan. Kaizi, why are you so late? Come out, beauty. The 2 of them shouted from below the carriage. Ling Han opened the door and came out, causing the 2 of them to gasp in surprise. Because they couldn't find Zhuokai, they couldn't help but ask, where's Zhuokai? They were not surprised that there was someone else sitting in Zhuokai's car, because Zhuokai loved to put on a show. He often made friends with geniuses, so that he could brag about it everywhere in the future. But what about the Zoukai? Ling Han smiled and said, Zhuokai encountered something fun on the way and asked me to inform you. Hurry up and go have fun. Wu Ju and Xushan were both surprised. They knew that Zhuokai was fun, but the level of this banquet was so high that all the geniuses in the past 10 billion years had been invited. Zhuokai had actually found an even more fun place. What's so fun? Wu Ju couldn't help but ask. Although he was also an immortal king, he had been forcefully pulled up by an almighty being. There was basically no room for improvement in the future. Hence eating, drinking, and having fun was his current mission. Ling Han pretended to be mysterious and made a shushing gesture. He then put his hand to his mouth and whispered, It's very fun. That's why Zhuokai invited you over. Seeing that Ling Han was being so mysterious, Wu Ju and Xushan couldn't help but ask, Where is it? Ling Han told them the location in detail, causing the dragon at the side to grimace. Ling Han was obviously trying to stir up trouble. If others were to see Zhuokai's appearance, would he still have the face to see others in the future? Sinister. He was truly sinister. However, the dragon didn't dare make a sound. It pretended not to know anything. After being punched by Ling Han, it was already completely afraid. Wu Ju and Xushan were stirred. They knew Zhuo Kai's character very well. If it wasn't for the fact that the matter was extremely fun, how could he have given up on such a bustling scene and gone somewhere else to have fun? They immediately summoned a carriage and sped off according to Ling Han's directions. They were afraid that Zhuo Kai would finish all the fun by himself. Ling Han chuckled as he jumped off the carriage and walked towards the cave abode. He was only a third firmament immortal king. Such a realm wasn't high, and he had never shown his face. Naturally, no one knew how powerful and monstrous he was. No one paid him any attention. After entering the cave abode, it was a completely different world. For celestial kings, opening up a world was really too easy. Thus, this cave abode was astonishingly large. The place they entered was a massive plaza, and there were rows of tables in the plaza. Every row of tables was made up of hundreds of tables, and they were covered with white cloth. One row was filled with meat, while the other row was filled with fruits. There were many people walking back and forth between the tables, taking something from one side to another. Coincidentally, they could take meat and fruits from anywhere, which was very convenient. Everyone walked around and ate as they conversed with others. Then, there would be attendants coming back to pour wine for everyone. It was quite a unique atmosphere. Though there were already several hundred people here, Ling Han only needed a glance to confirm that the Empress, Hunyou, and bewitching maiden Ro weren't among them. Thus, he picked up a plate and began to walk around. Very soon, he picked up a pile of food and then walked to the side to eat. There was no place to sit in the middle of the plaza, but there were all around, and there were tables to put things on. However, there weren't many people here, because this was a wine party, and was for everyone to interact. What was the meaning of sitting at the side and just eating? Ling Han naturally wouldn't mind. The food here was really not bad. Some of the dried meat of Celestial King tier great beasts was already delicious enough when cooked, and if the chef's skills were a little better, it would be even more delicious. He was very engrossed in eating, completely unconcerned about the gazes of others. However, he still attracted the attention of others after wolfing down the food for half a day. A young girl walked over with her hands behind her back, and then suddenly leaned over, her face almost right in front of Ling Han's. Why are you eating here alone? I like it, Ling Han said casually. The taste of this dish was really not bad, and Hunyou would like it. The young girl pursed her lips. Glutton, she said disdainfully. Then, she became excited again and said, why don't you go and interact with others? Why? Ling Han asked in response. The young girl was surprised. Could it be that you don't know that this is a blind date exchange? Ling Han couldn't help but smile. Then why don't you participate? Sigh, there aren't any good things. She sighed, looking very regretful. Chapter 25-29. Ling Han broke into a smile, pointed at himself and asked, how about you and me? You. The young girl sized him up, then nodded and evaluated. You've cultivated for less than 1 billion years, yet you're already a third heaven celestial king. Not bad, not bad. However, you're not my cup of tea. She spread her hands, an expression that said she didn't like him at all. Ling Han naturally would not be shocked. Though only 1 million or so years had passed in the real world, if he were to take into account the acceleration of the flow of time, that would still be a few 100 million years. This young girl's judgment was quite accurate. He smiled faintly and continued to eat. The young girl became interested in him and said, you're quite interesting. You didn't get angry when I said that. Just because of your magnanimity, I've decided to do a good deed. What? You want to save a single youth like me? Ling Han asked with a smile. I've decided to introduce my elder sister to you. Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. This young girl was obviously the unreliable type, and being her elder sister would definitely be very stressful. What are you frowning for? My elder sister is very beautiful, the young girl said proudly. In this year's 100-flower chart, my elder sister is ranked 4th. There would always be bored people who ranked beauties according to their beauty. There was a general ranking, and as long as they were female students of the academy, they would be included. However, there were also sub-rankings below the general ranking, and they were divided by 10 billion years. The young girl was obviously talking about the sub-rankings. With the Empress and Hunyo here, her elder sister could still be ranked 4th. So just thinking about it, she should be very beautiful. Since she's so beautiful, what need is there for you to be anxious? Ling Han said with a smile. You don't understand, the young girl said eloquently. In order to pursue elder sister, those damn men will definitely show their best side. And even if they want to pretend, they have to pretend very well. I won't be at ease, so I want to personally choose for elder sister. You in front of me, you don't have any pretense, do you? Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Though this young girl's words were all twisted logic was still logic. Big sister will also come later. I'll introduce you to her, and I guarantee that you'll drool when you see her, the girl boasted. Ling Han deliberately said, Really? I have very high standards. Unless she's as beautiful as Luan Xing, I won't be tempted. You. The young girl pointed at Ling Han. How could this fellow be so shameless? Who was Luan Xing? Not only was she this year's 100 Flower Charts courtesan queen, even if she was placed in the overall rankings, she would be one of the best. The only one who could compete with her was Lin Yulien. However, Lin Yulien had gone out to train a few eras ago, and had yet to return. Thus, her status as the #1 beauty of the Chaotic Stars galaxy was unshakable. You call this having high standards? You're just shameless. With me? You've never even seen Luan Xing, and you're just following the crowd. You can only imagine her peerless beauty in your mind. Let me tell you, if I don't tell you who my sister is, you'll definitely think she's even more beautiful than Luan Xing, said the girl unwillingly. Lu Ziyu, don't randomly play matchmaker for others. A voice suddenly rang out, interrupting the two of them. Ling Han walked over. It was a tall young man with 4 different colors wrapped around his body. There was an indescribable arrogance on his face. Mind your own business? Mind your own business. The young girl snorted and crossed her arms. The young man revealed an expression of displeasure. I'm Guandongyu. Don't be so calculative. It doesn't matter if it's one more horizontal or one less vertical. The young girl shrugged. Her name was Lu Ziyu. Guandongyu snorted. Fairy Chuyan isn't even your sister. Why do you need to worry about her? Mind my business? You really care too much. What does it have to do with you? Chunziyu glared at him angrily. Stupid girl. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because Fairy Chuyan dotes on you? Guandongyu suddenly reached out to grab Chunziyu. Ling Han shook his head. You're a man, and you have an advantage in cultivation. How can you bully a girl? He reached out and grabbed Guandongyu's wrist. Chunziyu was only a 2nd Firmament Immortal King. There was no way she could block Guandongyu's attack. Guandongyu couldn't help but be alarmed. A mere 3rd Firmament Immortal King was actually able to block his attack. He snorted. How dare you meddle in other people's business? He roared and exerted force in his right hand. The light of laws flashed. He wanted to shatter Ling Han's hand, but his expression immediately changed. His hand didn't move at all. It was still firmly held by Ling Han. He couldn't pull his hand out of the grasp of a 3rd Firmament Immortal King? This was ridiculous. Could it be that the other party was hiding his cultivation? Impossible. Immortal Kings could indeed hide their colors, but they had to either hide all of them or not at all. It was impossible to hide just a few of them. Since Ling Han had displayed 3 brilliant lights, that meant that he was a 3rd Heaven Celestial King. He was a genuine 3rd Heaven Celestial King. Guandongyu's expression suddenly changed. There was only one possibility. Ling Han was the Emperor Star, or even more monstrous than the Emperor Star. He was a monster with an evolution index of 11 or even 12. I admit defeat, Guandongyu said sensibly. If they really fought, not only would he not gain anything, but he would also embarrass himself in public. Ling Han nodded. Since Guandongyu was so sensible, he withdrew his hand. Guandongyu immediately turned and left. He didn't even participate in the banquet. Wow, so you're this fierce. Chunziyu's eyes lit up. Ling Han smiled and asked, Are you tempted? I already said you're not my type, said Chunziyu. Chunziyu said, However, I like people like you more. Your chances have increased greatly. Ling Han was just about to speak when he saw a woman swaying her slender waist walk over. She looked very charming, and there were 2 colors wrapped around her body. She bowed slightly to Ling Han and said, "Tan Shuangshuang greets senior brother." Ling Han nodded, which could be considered as returning the greeting. "Shoo shoo shoo, you don't have a share in this person." Chen Ziyu hurriedly chased her away. Clearly, she had only run over after seeing Guan Dongyu being chased away. Why? A 3rd-layer Deva had forced out a 4th-layer Deva. That meant he had unparalleled talent. Wouldn't such a person be an excellent son-in-law? Senior brother. Senior brother. Senior brother. Even more women walked over. They were like sharks that had smelled blood. How could Chen Ziyu block all of them by herself? She couldn't help but shout angrily. How could they ignore Ling Han before? At that moment a commotion rang out. "Fairy Chuyan is here." Someone cried out. "My sister is here." Chen Ziyu immediately felt relieved. She was completely confident that as long as Ling Han arrived, he would definitely be charmed by Yin Shuyun. She wouldn't have to worry about him being seduced by some seductress. The crowd surged, and many people went to the entrance to welcome her. Which man wouldn't be moved by the 4th-ranked beauty on the 100-flower chart? This was a matchmaking event, and the people who came were naturally here for the matchmaking event. Like the stars surrounding the moon, a beautiful woman walked out from the crowd. Behind her were many men, all of them fawning over her. "Let's go. I'll bring you to see my sister," said Chen Ziyu. Chapter 2530. Yin Qiuyan was like the moon surrounded by stars. She was indeed extraordinarily beautiful, even more beautiful than bewitching Maiden Row. Her figure was as graceful as a green lotus, beautiful beyond compare. If she only had looks, then she would just be a flower vase. However, she was also a martial art genius. Her aura was powerful, and there were even 5 rays of light entwined around her body. This was enough to prove her strength. Chen Ziyu pulled on one of Ling Han's arms, and pulled him forward with all her strength. Wanting to squeeze into the crowd was extremely difficult. Everyone was a celestial king, and they emitted powerful auras. As long as there was a great difference in cultivation level, it was impossible to barge in. Fortunately, Chen Ziyu was still shouting as she walked, attracting Yin Qiuyan's attention. She purposely stopped, and only then did everyone realize, opening up a path for Chen Ziyu. "Sister, I found you a Mr. Right." Chen Ziyu was slightly out of breath. Barging through this crowd was like fighting with many celestial kings, and it made her very tired. When these words were spoken, a great many people immediately glared at her, and Ling Han angrily. Yin Qiuyan glanced at Ling Han and said, "Oh, it's him?" Her expression was carefree, and she was full of smiles. Chen Ziyu turned her head, and almost went mad with anger. That was because although one of Ling Han's hands was being held by her, his other hand was still holding onto a plate, which he placed to his mouth, and was still eating mouthful by mouthful. "How long has it been since you last ate? Or are you the reincarnation of a hungry ghost?" Chen Ziyu wanted to cry. She had already put in so much effort. But why did Ling Han, the person involved, not take it to heart at all? "How should I address you, Dao friend?" Yin Qiuyan asked with a smile. She naturally could not match up to a 3rd heaven celestial king, but she thought that Ling Han and Chen Ziyu could become a couple, so she naturally had to show some concern. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, "This one is Li Si." Yin Qiuyan's self-restraint was very good, but when she heard this, she had the urge to beat someone up. "Even if you are not willing to tell me your name, there is no need to trick me like this, right? Oh, so it's fellow Taoist Li Si." She nodded, then said to Chen Ziyu, "Ziyu, come. I want to say a few words to you." His words were fake, but in truth, he just didn't want Chen Ziyu and Ling Han to have any contact with each other anymore. He wanted to separate them. Chen Ziyu let go of Ling Han's hand and walked over. Yin Qiuyan smiled faintly and started walking. Then she turned around and glanced at Ling Han. Her gaze was a little fierce and filled with warning. Naturally, she was telling Ling Han not to have any improper thoughts towards Chen Ziyu, or else she would not be polite. Ling Han naturally didn't take it to heart. He just smiled, and was about to start walking when he was stopped by a few men with unfriendly expressions. "Do not have any thoughts about immortal King Autumn Cloud. You don't deserve it." Otherwise, we don't mind teaching you how to behave. These people spoke one after another, and their words were extremely harsh. Ling Han looked at them. They were all third firmament immortal kings. He shook his head. There are so many people chasing after her. Why is she targeting me? This proves that you are too weak. You only dare to shout at me. Those few immortal kings all laughed coldly. Nonsense, they were only third firmament immortal kings. Did they want them to face a fourth firmament immortal king? You are right. They all nodded. Ling Han murmured. Am I so easy to bully? He suddenly attacked. Pung pung pung. With just 3 punches and 2 kicks, the few immortal kings were all knocked to the ground. It was clearly a battle between immortal kings, but it became a battle between ruffians. There was no power of laws at all, and every punch landed on flesh. It was extremely vulgar. But the battle ended so quickly. Yin Chuyun and the others hadn't gone far when they heard the commotion. They all turned around and saw a few immortal kings moaning on the ground. Ling Han dusted his hands and walked back to the side of the square to start eating again. This brat, a blue-robed youth muttered. His eyes twitched. 5 rays of light wrapped around his body, and his aura was extremely terrifying. He's very extraordinary. He defeated celestial kings of the same cultivation level in just a few breaths' time. Moreover, he defeated more than one celestial king. He must have just advanced to become a new emperor star. Another celestial king said with a smile. He was dressed in a green robe, and although his evaluation of Ling Han was very high, his expression was extremely calm. This was natural. So what if it was a third firmament emperor star? He was a 5th firmament immortal king. With the suppression of 2 levels, the difference in strength was huge. Immortal kings had 9 heavens, and each step was like reaching the heavens. This was nonsense. Moreover, he was an emperor after all, and he was just a level lower than the emperor star. Yin Chuyun was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Ling Han to be so strong. Before this, the first impression that Ling Han had given her was far too poor. He had a mischievous appearance and was completely unreliable. Now, however, it was proven that he was even an imperial star, so this naturally exceeded her expectations. Fairy Chuyun, there's no need to care about such a minor character. Please, advised the young immortal kings around her. Yin Chuyun nodded. This was the #1 martial academy under the heavens. Let alone emperor stars. There were even demon-level geniuses with evolution indexes of 11 or 12. Only Chen Ziyu realized that she had been tricked. She wanted to go and find Ling Han, but Yin Chuyun grabbed onto her tightly. She could only helplessly leave. Brother, you met with a rebuff, right? When Ling Han returned to his seat, he saw several young people walking over. There were both men and women, and all of them had mocking expressions on their faces. Hee, that's Fairy Chuyun. How can she be someone you can climb up to? That's right. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you're an emperor star. Just this batch alone, there are thousands of emperor stars. You really don't count for anything, said a beautiful woman with a sour tone. Before this, she had taken the initiative to strike up a conversation with Ling Han, but Ling Han had indifferently rejected her. She was naturally unhappy in her heart. Now that she had a chance, how could she not take this chance to mock him? Ha 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 ha. These people all began to laugh. They were inferior to Ling Han, and it was impossible for them to chase away a 4th heaven stage expert with a 3rd heaven stage cultivation. Now that they saw Ling Han being humiliated, it actually became a source of joy for them. Ling Han shook his head. What kind of people were these? Even if they were sovereigns, they shouldn't be so shallow, right? What he didn't know was that these people were natives of the Firefrost Plain. They didn't like outsiders in the first place. The men were jealous, and the women were resentful. When these 2 factors were added together, their performance was incomparably ugly. Ling Han waved his hand. Move away. Don't let out a stench that will affect my meal. This guy. Those young men and women were all angry, but they were either 3rd heaven stage or 2nd heaven stage immortal kings. If they fought, how could they be Ling Han's match? Naturally, they didn't dare to act out. Haha, this wine party is actually a blind date. I'm waiting for you to leave alone, someone mocked. That's right. If there's anyone who can get on top of him, I'll eat all the tables. I'll eat the chairs. They deliberately said this to increase the intensity of their mockery. At this moment, there was another commotion at the entrance. Goddess Luanxing is here. As soon as this sentence was said, everyone in the plaza immediately surged towards the entrance as if they had gone crazy. They were fighting to be in front of the door. Goddess Luanxing and the other young men and women's eyes also lit up. The Empress's charm was alluring to both men and women. Chapter 2532. How strange. Could it be that this kind of thing had become so common that no one cared about it? Wu Ju and Xushan were both shocked. They had rushed to the place excitedly, only to see two naked men lying on top of each other, moving and roaring at the same time. Their faces turned green. Heavens, this taste was too strong. They naturally hated Zhuokai. It was one thing for him to be a pervert, but he had even asked them to play with him. Don't drag us into the ditch too. They hurriedly ran back, wanting to expose Zhuokai's shameful behavior to the public. Additionally, they also wanted to seek Ling Han for revenge. They had actually been forced to witness such a scene. Their outlook on life was really going to be twisted. Wow, what? Zhuokai is actually that kind of person. Someone finally recovered from the shock and began to accept another explosive piece of news. Haha, Zhuokai actually likes men. That's possible. After playing with these kind of second-generation women too much and getting tired of them, he might want to try something new. Hey, don't make it sound so disgusting. And it's even fresh. I'm about to vomit. I remember now. Zhuokai even put his hand on my shoulder a few days ago. He must have had designs on me back then. Congratulations, brother. You might even be taken into Zhuokai's harem in a few days. That damn pervert. More and more people began to discuss this. This was indeed big news and a big scandal. What kind of person was Zhuo Bing? He was a dignified quasi-heavenly venerable, but his descendant actually played with men. He could vomit blood to death. Is this real? Someone confirmed with Wu Ju and Xushan. Of course it's real. I even recorded it with a memory crystal, said Wu Ju. Sure enough, Wu Ju took out a piece of crystal and activated it with his source energy. The crystal immediately shone and projected a three-dimensional scene. Wah! The entire place was instantly filled with disgusting sounds. Two naked men were piled on top of each other, moving their bodies while roaring. Was there even a need to think about what they were doing? The one in charge of attacking was Zhuokai. Hey, that little show is Wu Shi. Someone recognized the young man in purple. Of course, he was not wearing purple anymore. It really is Wu Shi. It can't be. Wu Shi is an emperor, and I've seen him before. It's very normal. Tisk, why would someone with such a hobby tell you? If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. Everyone shook their heads. Wu Shi could be considered a promising youth, so how could he do such a thing? Wu Ju and Xushan searched for a while and soon found Ling Han. Even though their cultivations had been forcibly pulled up, celestial kings were still celestial kings. It was too easy for them to find someone among the crowd. They ran over, wanting to settle the score with Ling Han. He actually dared to plot against them, causing them to fall into such a trap. Get lost, the Empress said softly without waiting for them to speak. Her voice was filled with domineering dominance. Previously, Wu Ju and Ling Han had not gone to the Empress. It was really because Ling Han was too hateful. Only when they were reprimanded did they realize that they had gone over to the Empress. Suddenly, their gazes were fixed on her. The goddess was actually the chaotic stars goddess. They were all stunned speechless, and they were even more at a loss as to what to do. They quickly retreated. Only when they had retreated to the side did they come to a sudden realization. That was not right. Weren't they going to settle the score with Ling Han? What was this now? But when they thought of the Empress's absolute beauty and grace, they did not have the courage to step forward again. Ling Han looked at his wife and couldn't help but smile. After the Empress had advanced into the Celestial King tier, she appeared even more graceful and noble, and even he was finding it a little hard to bear. As the two of them ate, they talked about their experiences in these few years, completely acting as if there was no one else around. In their eyes, there was only the existence of each other. Ling Han asked about Hu Niu and bewitching Maiden Ro. Hunyeo was captured by a heavenly venerable to become his disciple, the empress said, unable to hold back a smile. Ling Han's expression was strange. Who wouldn't be fawning over being the disciple of a heavenly venerable? But the empress actually used the word captured. So it could be seen that the little girl had definitely been unwilling at the time. Only this little girl could do it. Ling Han recalled that when Hunyeo had been captured and brought back to the rock palace, hadn't she also been unwilling? This little girl had no concept of fated opportunity in her eyes. And everything was done as she pleased. Little Ro is currently breaking through to the third heaven, the empress continued. Ling Han nodded. Bewitching maiden Ro originally only had the aptitude of a king tier, but relied on the heavenly Dao Jade, completing regulations, and so on to become a monarch tier. She could effortlessly charge up to the fifth heaven of the celestial king tier. But the speed of her advancement naturally couldn't compare to that of an emperor star. What more when the empress's current evolution index was definitely more than 10. Not only had bewitching maiden Ro improved greatly, but so had little terror. After this battle beast had come to the fiery frost plain, it seemed to have suddenly broken free of its shackles, advancing astonishingly quickly. Now, it was already at the fifth heaven, and in terms of cultivation level alone, it was completely no weaker than Tiansheng. This should be because the level of the fiery frost plain was higher, and had an extremely large capacity, allowing Little Terror's advancement speed to suddenly increase. It should be known that battle beasts were born for battle in the first place. So what was strange about their advancement speed being fast? Ling Han also spoke of his own experiences, causing the empress to involuntarily feel heartache. She swore that she would tear Tianxing into pieces and feed him piece by piece to the dogs. I have to avenge this vengeance, Ling Han said with a serious expression. He definitely had to defeat Tianxing. This was his next goal. Just like how he had competed with Ji Wuming in the past, this time, it was Tianxing's turn. A powerful opponent could also make him stronger. The two of them spoke for a good while, yet suddenly discovered that the atmosphere of the scene had become cold. They raised their heads and saw that everyone's eyes were focused on the doorway. They also walked over and saw that there was a man dressed completely in black standing at the doorway. His body was entwined with 6 rays of light, and his aura had all turned solid, floating like black clouds, causing one's heart to palpitate. Xiaoingxiong, the empress murmured. This person is very strong, and it is said that he is an existence that has surpassed the emperor star, and his evolution index is as high as 11. So he was Xiaoingxiong. Ling Han nodded internally. A 6th heaven super emperor star. His battle prowess had definitely soared to 7th heaven, and it was very possible that he was close to 8th heaven. Thus, even Tianxing was no match for this kind of elite, though he would not be defeated. He also knew why there was a sudden silence. It was because Xiaoingxiong was pursuing the empress, and this was something that everyone knew. Yet, he was here being lovey-dovey with the empress. Hee. Xiaoingxiong's gaze swept over, and he immediately discovered the empress. A sliver of a smile actually appeared on his originally cold face, but when he saw Ling Han, this smile immediately froze. He humphed and strode towards Ling Han and the empress. It's coming, there's going to be a good show. Xiaoingxiong is making a move, and that guy is definitely in trouble. Sigh, he doesn't have enough strength, yet he still dares to covet the goddess. Isn't he just seeking his own death? Many people whispered to each other. Ling Han had returned with the empress, and this made him a public enemy in an instant. Xiaoingxiong stood still, stopping about 3 meters in front of Ling Han's table. He flicked his fingers and said to Ling Han, "Scram." One word, simple, direct, and domineering. Chapter 2533. Before Ling Han could speak, he saw the empress stand up, her beautiful face full of frost. You are the one who should get lost. In terms of domineeringness, the empress was never weaker than anyone else. Xiaoingxiong immediately revealed a friendly smile to the empress. Don't be ridiculous. The empress was about to fly into a rage, but Ling Han stood up, blocked her, and shielded her behind him. He chuckled. There's nothing to say. Do you dare to battle in the 9 Deaths formation? A battle in the 9 Deaths formation? Everyone was surprised. Ling Han was really daring, even daring to challenge Xiaoxiong. However, this brat was not stupid. The Nine Deaths formation had a special characteristic, and that was that when high-level celestial kings entered a low-level formation, their cultivation would be suppressed to a corresponding level. For example, if everyone entered the third level of the Nine Deaths formation, then everyone's cultivation would be suppressed to third heaven. Humph, why should I agree? Xiaoxiong said coldly, if you don't have enough strength, don't do anything to provoke me. Ling Han smiled faintly. In a battle at the same cultivation level, I have yet to meet an opponent. If you don't dare to fight me, just say so. This was provocation. Everyone gasped. Ling Han was really daring, actually daring to be so arrogant. However, although battles were not prohibited in the academy, there were restrictions on cultivation. The gap between the two sides in a battle could not be more than 2 heaven, or an elite would appear and immediately stop the battle. Thus, unless Ling Han would foolishly agree to fight Xiaoxiong, Xiaoxiong would definitely not make a move against him. No wonder this guy was so confident. It turned out that he was already prepared. Xiaoxiong glanced at the Empress, his expression becoming darker and darker, and he said, all right, battle in the Nine Deaths formation. He took the lead and walked out of the cave. Ling Han smiled, and also started walking, and the Empress definitely followed closely behind. When these 3 people left, the whole place was instantly in an uproar, and they swarmed away. When most people had left, Xianning arrived late. When he saw that there were only a few people, he couldn't help but be surprised, because he had calculated the time, and felt that this should be about the time. So why were there still so few people? Ling Han, Xiaoxiong, and the others soon arrived at the entrance of the academy, and the Nine Deaths formation was in front. Which one? Xiaoxiong asked in a low voice. The second one, Ling Han said. His body technique was not suppressed by the array, so the greater the suppression on his realm, the better. For example, if he was at the first layer of heaven, he would be able to suppress Xiaoxiong until he became a retard with a single finger. Of course, entering the third level of the Nine Slaughter formation was not a big deal. His body technique was simply too powerful, and he had a great chance of defeating a Stage 3 Super Emperor star. It was just that he would not be able to easily suppress them. Xiaoxiong couldn't be bothered to speak, and directly entered the array from behind the first stone tablet. Ling Han smiled and walked into the Nine Deaths formation. Now that we are all at the second heavenly layer, we have the strength to fight on the same level. Yes, whoever has a higher evolution index will have an advantage. Needless to say, it must be Xiaoxiong. His evolution count is as high as 11. Among this batch of students, the only one who can suppress him is Fire Hibiscus. And innate, that's a monster. Everyone spoke one after another. Xiaoxiong was still the best. Even if his cultivation was suppressed, those with a higher realm would definitely have a slight advantage. This was something that could not be changed. At this moment, 2 impressive-looking men appeared at almost the same time, and landed beside the Empress. Guhoi, Miaohua. These were the other 2 super monsters. It was said that their evolution indexes had reached 11, and their cultivation had also reached the 6th heavenly layer. Their battle prowess was unparalleled. What's the situation? Guhui asked. He was completely different from Xiaoxiong. His face was full of friendly smiles, and he seemed very approachable. Lord Gu, Xiaoxiong is fighting with someone in the Nine Deaths formation, someone replied. Oh, who is it? Guhui was a little surprised. Miaohua and him were both here, so who was qualified enough for Xiaoxiong to fight? Li Si. Pooh. Guhui and Miaohua's expressions became strange at the same time. Was he joking with them? He is indeed called Li Si. More people nodded. At least this was what Ling Han had said himself. There is also Zhang San here. Someone suddenly pointed at the first stone tablet and said. The 8th position clearly had the words Zhang San written on it. Zhang San Li Si. It's the same person. Hiss. Although that person is listed on the immemorial stone, he has not appeared for 7,000 years. Everyone suspects that he might have used a forbidden technique to charge through, leaving behind extremely heavy injuries. That's why he has not appeared. Could it be that he has recovered? If he uses a forbidden technique again, Xiaoxiong might really lose. That person had used a forbidden technique to charge to the 8th position of the immemorial stone. This was something that Xiaoxiong could not compare to. Now if Ling Han could use the same trick again, would Xiaoxiong be able to win in a battle of the same level? Impossible. Gu Hui and Miao Hua were still a little curious. Why would Xiaoxiong suddenly fight with this person? They asked about the situation, and their faces all darkened. Damn! If it was them, they would also not hesitate to make a move. Damn! He actually dared to make a move against their goddess. I hope Xiaoxiong can teach this kid a ruthless lesson, Gu Hui said. What a stupid guy, Miao Hua also said coldly. Oh, someone is coming out. A figure flashed behind the first stone tablet. This person was definitely not passing through the 9 deaths formation, but returning from the original path. Who is it? Everyone stood on their tiptoes, and all of them immediately revealed shocked expressions. Ling Han, it was Ling Han. Hiss, how long had it been? And he had already beaten Xiaoxiong to the ground. Even Gu Hai and Miao Hua were greatly shocked, and their expressions became incomparably solemn. Although they were incomparably conceited and thought that they were stronger than Xiaoxiong in a battle of the same level, there was still a limit to how strong they were. No matter what, they would need to fight for a few days and nights before a victor could be determined. Moreover, the difference between victory and defeat would definitely be negligible. However, not much time had passed, and Ling Han had already walked out. What kind of crushing advantage was this? Could it be that this guy's evolution index had reached 12? You stop. Xiaoxiong also appeared. However, when he ran out, everyone could not help but laugh out loud. This guy was too miserable. His face had been beaten until it was swollen like a pig's head, and there was no trace of his cold and arrogant appearance left. Originally, everyone was still hoping that Ling Han did not fight with Xiaoxiong at all, and that he had only gone in for a short while before running out. However, looking at Xiaoxiong's appearance, who would still have any doubts? Ling Han was too strong. He could actually be so strong in a battle of the same level. This was an absolute crushing. Ling Han turned around and smiled. What, haven't you been beaten up enough? Xiaoxiong's entire body trembled, and this was caused by his anger. You cheated. Your cultivation is definitely higher than the 2nd heavenly layer. Ling Han laughed. What you said is wrong. Even if my cultivation is higher than the 2nd heavenly layer, it should have been suppressed to the 2nd heavenly layer. In the 9 deaths formation, everyone's cultivation is the same. Xiaoxiong was immediately speechless, but he still felt that something was wrong. Ling Han was too strong, so strong that it was completely unreasonable. Why don't we go in again and fight? Ling Han suggested with a smile. Chapter 2534. Fight your sister. Xiaoxiong almost cursed out loud. Although he tried his best to resist just now, he couldn't do anything at all. He was miserably abused. Still fighting? Let's fight after we enter the 3rd great formation, Xiaoxiong said in a low voice. He did not want to take advantage of Ling Han, as Ling Han was at the 3rd layer. Okay, Ling Han agreed without hesitation. They once again entered the formation, and immediately began the battle. This time, it was clear that Xiaoxiong had the upper hand. This was because Ling Han's true cultivation level was at the 3rd heaven. He no longer had the advantage of not being suppressed. However, Ling Han was able to compete with Xiaoxiong in terms of rules alone, and he was even better in terms of physical skills. When he combined the two, it was equivalent to 2 of him joining forces to fight Xiaoxiong. Is this something Xiaoxiong can resist? In just a few hundred moves, he was defeated once again, and his swollen face became even more tragic. Someone is coming out. Is it still Li Si? Outside, when the crowd saw the silhouettes flashing, they all cried out. It's Ling Han. Everyone sighed with emotion. This guy won again. Xiaoxiong also walked out. His sorry state made people laugh. His face was gloomy, and his eyes were full of fighting spirit. After 2 battles, he naturally discovered that in addition to the power of rules, Ling Han also had physical skills, and was not suppressed by the 9 deaths formation. However, as Ling Han was a 3rd firmament immortal king, there was a limit to his body techniques. If he were to make a move now, he could easily suppress Ling Han. But firstly, the martial courtyard had its rules. Secondly, if he were to rely on the suppression of his realm to defeat Ling Han, then it would be an unfair victory. So, what would be the point of it? Enter the fourth formation and fight again. Xiaoxiong couldn't open his mouth, which was equivalent to admitting that he wasn't a match for Ling Han in a battle of the same level. He looked deeply at Ling Han. If Ling Han's physical skills could be improved along with his realm, then he would never be a match for Ling Han in a battle of the same level. But if that was not the case, then it was a different story. Humph. He flicked his sleeves and left. The arrogance in his heart made him choose to wait for Ling Han to advance further before fighting. Junior brother, there's no need to be deliberately mystifying. Tell me your real name, Gu Hui said to Ling Han. His face was full of a kind smile, as if he would never get angry. A real man never changes his name. I am Li Si, Ling Han said with a smile. A look of displeasure finally appeared on Gu Hui's face. Although he had always been amiable, it did not mean that he was less arrogant than others. On the contrary, this kind of humility was merely an expression of his arrogance. Miao Hua also revealed an angry expression. Do you think we can't deal with you just because we are 3 realms higher than you? If you aren't convinced, then let's meet in the third great formation. Let's have a fair battle. Whoever comes, I'll suppress one. Ling Han challenged, opposing him with equal harshness. Do you dare? Gu Hui and Miao Hua both furrowed their brows. Their battle prowess was on par with Xiaoxiong, and even if they were confident that they were stronger, they would not surpass him by much. However, Ling Han did not take too much time to defeat Xiaoxiong, and it was obvious that he had a crushing advantage in terms of strength. It was truly unwise to fight rashly. They decided to go after Xiaoxiong first. He had fought with Ling Han twice, so he should have some understanding of Ling Han. The two of them did not speak, and they turned and left at the same time. Amazing! A third Heaven Immortal King had actually forced away a sixth Heaven Immortal King, and these two were existences ranked in the top 3 of this year's combat prowess ranking. Everyone was extremely excited. After today, a new genius would appear in the academy, and his talent would surpass the level of Gu Hui and Miao Hua. He should be comparable to Tiansheng, right? They all returned to Xianying's cave abode, and continued with the blind date. However, after experiencing the previous few incidents, everyone's interest was greatly reduced. Bastard! An angry roar was heard, and Zhuokai rushed in like an arrow. He looked around, and his eyes were about to spit fire. This was a great humiliation. He had actually been stripped naked and stacked together with another naked man. Moreover, they were moving and rubbing against each other. Just thinking about it made him feel incomparably disgusted. More importantly, this scene had also been seen by his scoundrel friends. He knew what kind of character these two had, and they would definitely spread the news everywhere. Thus, his shameful matter would definitely be known by everyone now. He hated Ling Han, the main culprit behind all of this. He very quickly discovered Ling Han, and immediately shouted loudly, I want you to die. The Empress flared up in fury, and pointed menacingly at Zhuokai. You lowly wild dog, you deserve to die 10,000 times. Only now did Zhuokai see the Empress, and his aura involuntarily froze. The Empress's aura was too strong, and he couldn't even raise his head. However, his fury was too strong, and he very quickly flew into a violent rage. He said, I will give 100 million star stones to whoever kills him for me. Everyone acted as if they hadn't heard him. As a student of the academy, and more so as a celestial king-level monarch tier and emperor star, who would care about 100 million star stones. Zhuokai also knew that he had flaunted his wealth in the wrong place. This wasn't like those underlings of his who would be all over him, as long as he took out some star stones. He pondered for a moment, then drew out a jade box and said, This is a crimson clear flame pill. It can greatly increase the cultivation level of celestial kings below 5th heaven, and save at least 10 billion years of bitter cultivation. Whoever kills that person, this crimson clear flame pill will belong to him. Suddenly, a great many people looked tempted, saving 10 billion years of bitter cultivation. This was very astonishing. So who wouldn't be tempted? But the problem was, firstly, no one dared to kill someone in the academy, and secondly, how many people could be a match for Ling Han? Thus, though everyone was very tempted, there was still no one who stood out. Zhuo Kai faltered. He wasn't an idiot, after all, and after a moment's thought, he knew where he had gone wrong. He said, "Whoever beats him into a dead dog, this crimson clear flame pill can also be given to him." "Shut up." With a cold snort, Xianing spoke up. He was a ninth heaven celestial king, but someone actually dared to beat and kill someone in his cave abode? What kind of status did he have? Zhuo Kai raised his head, cupped his hands, and said, "Greetings, Lord Xian." He didn't show too much reverence, because his great-grandfather was a quasi-celestial venerable. Although it was just one step more than a ninth heaven celestial king, this step was shockingly large. "Lord Xian, how about giving me some face?" he said. The others almost laughed out loud. A mere third heaven celestial king actually dared to ask for face from a ninth heaven celestial king? He really didn't know his own limits. Only a spoiled brat like Zhuo Kai could do such a thing. Even Xianing couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, "Senior Zhuo actually has a descendant like you. I wonder if he'll be humiliated by you one day." He waved his hand and said, "Go." Boom. A great force surged out, and Zhuo Kai couldn't help but retreat. He only stopped when he was out of the cave abode. He glared at the door, but didn't enter again. A ninth heaven celestial king had already spoken, and had even made a move. If he still didn't know what was good for him, then he would only be asking for trouble. However, he definitely wouldn't let this matter rest. He turned around angrily and strode away. Ling Han immediately whispered into the Empress's ear, "I'll be right back." Zhuo Kai actually had something as good as the crimson clear flame pill on him, so he definitely couldn't let him escape just like that. Chapter 2536. Wally had also followed Zhou Heng to the Flame Frost Plain. Ling Han had learned of this from the messages left behind by Hu Niu, the Rain Emperor, and the others. The Empress spread her hands, indicating that she did not know. Such a proud person like her, would she care about who lived where? Ling Han could only be speechless. This was definitely his wife, without a doubt. He was researching the crimson clear flame pill himself. If he could refine it, it would be of great help to their group. A day passed, and there were immediately many interesting stories in the martial arts academy. For example, a fierce person called Li Si had violently abused Xiaoing Xiong in the Nine Deaths formation, and twice at that. Another example was that the Luan Xing goddess suddenly had an owner, and this lucky person who was envied by countless people and wanted to curse was still that Li Si. Another example was that a trend had suddenly arisen in the martial arts academy, and the first couple to be exposed was the Zhuo clans Kai Zi and Wu Shi. Even more absurd was that these two actually had sex in the wild. Even more absurd was that these two actually did it more than once. They had just been exposed, and in the blink of an eye, they had sex in a carriage. It was one thing if they had sex in their own abode, but they actually parked it by the roadside. Who didn't pass by that rhythmic vibration, as well as those bursts of tiger roars? Shameless, too shameless. Of course, Zhuo Kai's matter was a joke, but it was precisely this kind of news that had the most potential to spread. In a single day, it had spread throughout the entire martial arts academy. Who knew if it would directly anger the old man to death when it spread to Zhuo Bing, who was fighting in the distant outer realm? Ling Han was concentrating on researching the crimson clear flame pill. But after only a day, he was called out by the Empress. Someone know a dog had come to visit him. The large black dog sat in the hall, acting like a human, holding a teacup in his hand. His expression was unfathomable, and he had the demeanor of a con man. "Little Han, come and massage my legs." The large black dog did not need to turn around at all. He was a ninth heaven celestial king, so his divine sense was naturally powerful. Ling Han was surprised. "How did you recognize me?" He had cultivated the heaven-deceiving art. Even when he was born, he did not notice any abnormalities. TCH. There was a look of disdain on the large black dog's face. "Do you think I don't know you well enough? Yesterday, when I heard about Zhuo Kai's incident, Grandpa Dog immediately thought that this unlucky grandson of mine had been pranked by someone. In this world, apart from me, I believe that only you, the little rascal who has received my teachings, can come up with this kind of prank. Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle. This large black dog was the master of pranks, and it actually recognized people by pranking them. It's good that you're here. In the future, when I mess with people, you'll have to cover for me, he said with a smile. No problem, the large black dog said as he patted his chest. Ling Han said leisurely, I heard that the Zhou family's ancestor is a quasi-celestial venerable. Grandpa Dog's stomach suddenly feels a bit uncomfortable. Yesterday, I think I ate an expired beef kebab. Grandpa Dog is going to find that guy to settle the score. He actually dared to sell something like that to Grandpa Dog. The large black dog slid down to the ground, and then took the opportunity to walk out. This damn dog really bullied the weak and feared the strong. There was no saving him. Ling Han hurriedly stopped him and said, Can't you have a bit of backbone? Hey, what's backbone? Can it be eaten? The large black dog was completely shameless. He had never cared about face before. Ling Han sighed and said, Zhou Bing is in the extraterrestrial battlefield, and it's impossible for him to return in a short period of time. Why isn't Grandpa Dog's stomach hurting anymore? The large black dog rubbed his stomach. As expected of a ninth heaven celestial king, Grandpa Dog is destined to become a celestial venerable in the future. The quality of his body is really good. Ling Han gave him the middle finger, and then said with a serious expression, The Tower of Three Realms has now fallen into the hands of Heavenly Venerable. We have to think of a way to take it back. This was the final remnant of the Heavenly Venerable original born, and it definitely could not fall into the hands of others. The large black dog also became serious, and said, Though I can suppress that brat firstly, there are rules in the academy, and I can't openly make a move. Secondly, that brat is the manifestation of divine metal, and even Grandpa Dog can't break through his defenses. It will be difficult to forcefully take back the Tower of Three Realms. Ling Han was also aware of this, and he slowly nodded and said, However, we definitely have to deal with Heavenly Venerable. Furthermore, when I battled with him on the Celestial Road, it was also the remnant will of the Heavenly Venerable original born that appeared at the final juncture, and disturbed his mind. Only then did we manage to escape. Lord Original Born. The large black dog instantly became excited. Let's go. Grandpa Dog will immediately kill that brat and rescue Lord Original Born. Looking at his excited expression, Ling Han nodded internally. At least in terms of attitude towards the Heavenly Venerable Original Born, the large black dog was still extremely loyal, and did not sully the moral character of a dog. Woof brat, you're blinking your rat eyes all over the place. Are you cursing Grandpa Dog in your heart? The large black dog was extremely sensitive. Ling Han said seriously, I'm praising you. Then he pondered slightly and said, Heavenly Venerable is the incarnation of the celestial realm, and it can be said that those below the Heavenly Venerable tier are unable to do anything to him. Under the regulations of the plane, the ninth heaven celestial king was the limit. Although Heavenly Venerable was created by the heaven and earth through a backdoor, if the heaven and earth could really do as they pleased, would there still be Heavenly Venerables born? The power of heaven and earth was endless, yet there were regulations to restrict it. This was the regulations of the origin world, and could not be defied. Thus, Heavenly Venerable was very freakish, but it was impossible for him to be freakish to an endless extent. Could it be that I can only deal with him after becoming a Heavenly Venerable? The large black dog was slightly anxious. Although both he and Ling Han had the possibility of becoming a Heavenly Venerable, and in the Fire Frost plane, this possibility was even higher. That was definitely something that would happen countless years later. If one wanted to become a Heavenly Venerable, the accumulation of several epochs was a small matter. If they had to wait for so long, the large black dog could not sit still. Ling Han was also pondering, and said, To deal with Heavenly Venerable, we first have to break through his physique. But aside from a Heavenly Venerable, what else can deal with divine metal? He looked at the large black dog, and the large black dog also looked at him. The man and dog practically said at the same time, Heavenly Venerable Treasure Tool. Divine metal was the same level as Celestial King tier. so only those above Celestial King tier could destroy divine metal. Ling Han drew out the divine demon sword and said, "Then the first thing we have to do is to raise this celestial sword to heavenly venerable tier." Gasp, that requires an astonishing amount of divine metal. The large black dog bared his teeth. Ling Han broke into a grin and said, "Then I'll take it." "Why me? The one who will benefit is clearly you, brat. Unless you give this sword to me," the large black dog said shamelessly. Meanwhile, Ling Han said, "Firstly, you are a ninth heaven celestial king, and you are very powerful. There are only a handful of people in this world who can compete with you. Secondly, you are a dog, and your nose is so sensitive, so it is naturally easy for you to find divine metal. Woof, I will bite you to death." The large black dog was furious and immediately pounced. Ling Han naturally could not be a match for a ninth heaven celestial king. He hurriedly stopped fighting, and then said, "You should know where Wall lives, right? I have something to discuss with him." "Oh, right. How much do you understand about the intrinsic power of the origin world?" There was a gloomy expression on the large black dog's face. "Difficult, too difficult. The first step of becoming a heavenly venerable was to start from the unique power of a plane. However, Wall's model was aimed at the 6 great intrinsic powers, so he directly started from the second step. Thus, the large black dog, a ninth heaven celestial king, was dumbfounded. Chapter 2537. The large black dog brought Ling Han to find Vale. Although Vale was a battle soldier, because he had self-awareness, he could be considered an independent living being. Thus, he was brought here and became a member of the academy. How did he get through the 9-death formation? He ran all the way and endured the beatings. It couldn't be helped. His body was made from the so-called superstring material. It had an astonishing self-recovery ability and was almost indestructible. All these years, he had been absorbing the knowledge of the fiery frost plane. Although he went to a high-grade plane, he obviously didn't have the qualifications to go to a super high-grade plane. When the large black dog and Ling Han arrived, Vale's eyes lit up. He was still absorbing the knowledge, but he was entertaining the two of them without delay. "Analyze this pill for me." Ling Han took out the crimson clear flame pill and handed it over. Vale didn't refuse. He took the pill and said seriously, "You owe me 3 pieces of immortal gold. It's really expensive to hire this guy." Ling Han complained in his heart. But when he thought about it, he was the elite of a plane from hundreds of epochs. It was understandable that his appearance fee was higher. Vale temporarily stopped absorbing the knowledge and began to analyze this pill. After a day, he listed all the ingredients and gave 3 pill recipes. There were slight discrepancies. This was deduced based on the completed pill. The crimson clear flame pill has been lost. This is the pill recipe that I completed using the incomplete recipe and the completed pill. The accuracy is 91%, 87%, and 83% respectively. Vale's expression was solemn. He was like this all day long. It was extremely difficult to make him smile. The large black dog teased, "Wawa, smile for Grandpa Dog." Vale grinned. Instantly, his upper lip turned up and his lower lip drooped down, revealing 2 complete rows of teeth. "Are you smiling, or are you trying to scare me?" The large black dog quickly waved his paw. "How many times has Grandpa Dog taught you to smile naturally? You can't be pretentious or deliberate." Vale stared at him blankly. He was an expert in analyzing, but when it came to being a person, he was the biggest idiot. Ling Han laughed and patted the large black dog's shoulder. "Don't force him. This pill formula of mine requires a lot of great medicines. Right now, I'm short of money and can't buy the materials. How about we go make a big deal? TCH, Grandpa Dog doesn't get any benefits, so I won't do it." The large black dog immediately refused. Ling Han said leisurely, "We're going to raid Tianqing's house. Are you going to do it?" "Fuck." The large black dog was instantly energized. Ling Han nodded. "Bring Wally along too. We'll have to rely on him to break the formation." The man and the dog looked at Wally at the same time. Wally's face was full of confusion. Although he didn't understand human emotions, he still felt that the man and the dog's expressions were a little scary. He was born to be nurtured by heaven and earth, and his talent was astonishing. After he came to the martial academy, it was said that there were celestial venerables fighting to take him as a disciple, and he was probably rewarded with many treasures. If they could ransack his abode, the harvest would definitely be astonishing. However, the entire martial courtyard was under the control of the Empyrean. If anyone were to openly commit a crime, they would definitely be pulled out immediately. Thus, they needed Wali's help. He could help them escape undetected. The three of them were definitely a perfect match for being a thief. With Wali in charge of hiding their traces, analyzing, and breaking the restrictions, they easily broke into Tianxing's abode. And with the large black dog's help, even Tianxing wouldn't be able to discover their infiltration. Ling Han and the large black dog found the treasure trove and immediately began to sweep it clean. Why didn't Tianxing store his treasures in the Black Tower? It was simple. The Black Tower couldn't be used for a long time and needed the power of a celestial venerables to recover. Previously, Tianxing only allowed the Black Tower to grow larger, and he used it as a weapon to smash people. Other powers couldn't be used at all. There's also divine metal. Ling Han was shocked. He actually found a piece of divine metal here. Mine, Wali immediately said. His evolution required things like divine metal or dimensional scrolls. You haven't even digested the dimensional scrolls, so why are you in such a hurry? I'll let you owe it for now, Ling Han immediately said. It belongs to me. Grandpa Dog still doesn't have a suitable weapon. The large black dog was also drooling. Ling Han was puzzled. How come you don't even have a celestial tool? It was normal for ordinary celestial kings to not have a celestial tool. But the large black dog was at the 9th heaven level. So how could he not obtain divine metal? Don't mention it. I was severely wounded at that time and was forced to undergo a great rebirth. So I didn't keep any external possessions. My celestial tool has probably also been snatched away by someone to be reforged, the large black dog said gloomily. Ling Han laughed. I didn't think that there would be a time when you were at a disadvantage. It's all because of that bastard 9-5 celestial venerate. When Grandpa Dog breaks through, I'll definitely chop off his dog head. Pay, I'll chop off his head and kick it like a ball, the large black dog said angrily. Ling Han nodded. With the large black dog's craftiness, only a celestial venerate would be able to make him suffer. Let the divine demon sword devour this divine metal, he said. After all, it's filthy and can't see the light of day. Though the large black dog was very unwilling, he could only agree. Thankfully, there were really quite a number of treasures here. He distributed a few celestial king tier great medicines. Even if they were no longer of much use to him, he still had to obtain something. This damn dog would never make a losing deal. They retreated and immediately divided up the filthy treasures, destroying them as soon as possible. In less than 2 days, Tianxing discovered that the treasure trove had been robbed, and he was furious. Because the losses were too great. Even the Academy had participated in the investigation. But even the celestial venerate in charge had not discovered anything strange. So this matter could only be left unsettled. The large black dog instigated Ling Han, asking if they should do it again in a few days. Ling Han, however, shook his head. This kind of deal could only be done once, but not twice. To do something bad right under the nose of a celestial venerate, the first time was when he was unprepared. But was the real celestial venerate a mere decoration? Wali's deceitful techniques could be successful for a while. But that was because the celestial venerate did not pay attention at all. But if he still wanted to commit a crime now, he would only be walking into a trap. Moreover, Tianxing had just been robbed, so what could he gain by going back now? A sheep had to be fattened before being slaughtered. The large black dog's words were also spoken in a moment of anger. He was the ancestor of thieves, so how could he not understand? He muttered a few words, and then left. He wanted to travel the world, and first forge a celestial tool for himself, and then obtain enough celestial metal for the divine demon sword to swallow. Rescuing the heavenly venerate fate-born was his greatest wish now, even surpassing becoming a celestial venerate himself. Ling Han began to concoct the crimson clear flame pill. There were still not enough materials, and Ling Han only managed to concoct a crimson clear flame pill. He thought for a moment, and did not consume it himself. Instead, he planned to sell it and exchange it for more materials to concoct more alchemical pills. He released the news that there was a crimson clear flame pill for sale, and it soon attracted the interest of many people. What was interesting was that Zhuokai had once taken out this kind of alchemical pill to summon a fierce person in an attempt to kill Ling Han. Now Ling Han had taken out the crimson clear flame pill. So was he robbing Zhuokai? But when this alchemical pill was appraised, it was proven that it had just been concocted and had nothing to do with Zhuokai at all. Ling Han took the opportunity to release the news that he was a 5-star alchemist and could concoct Celestial King tier-level great pills for others. Of course, the fee was also very high. This was Ling Han's true goal. Chapter 2538. Alchemists were very profitable, especially high-level alchemists. Every time they concocted pills for others, they would receive an astonishing fee. And if they concocted pills themselves, they would auction them off. Ling Han wanted to concoct pills for others, and then receive Celestial King tier medicine as payment. That way, he would not need to concoct pills a few times, and he would have the materials to concoct a new crimson clear flame pill. This time, he was throwing a brick to attract jade. As expected, after a few days, someone communicated with him, asking him to help concoct pills. There was only one person, and there was no endless stream of people as imagined. This was very normal. Who knew how good Ling Han's alchemy was? What if he messed up his own pill? This first person was also very daring. Ling Han prepared for a few days before starting to concoct pills. Very soon, the pills were concocted, and the quality was very high. That person left joyfully. The news spread, and the next day, 3 people came separately, asking Ling Han to help concoct pills. Ling Han began to get busy. Celestial Kings were all very rich, and the longer they cultivated, the more astonishing their wealth, causing Ling Han's pockets to bulge. He had the time celestial physique, and concocting a cauldron of celestial pills only took a few hours in the real world. So the speed at which he earned money was naturally shocking. Ling Han's reputation grew, and more people asked him to concoct pills. The rate of success was really shocking, and as the number of pills he concocted increased, the quality of the pills also steadily improved. Everyone knew that an impressive alchemy king had appeared in the martial arts academy. 3 years later, bewitching maiden Ro came out of seclusion. She had successfully broken through to level 3. Knowing that Ling Han had arrived, she was naturally overjoyed, and Little Terror finally saw Ling Han and immediately rushed over. With a pang, he almost knocked over Ling Han. The little guy's current strength was too terrifying. His cultivation was at level 5, but his strength soared to the peak of level 6, so the collision naturally made Ling Han grit his teeth. Ling Han laughed loudly and picked up Little Terror. This little guy is getting stronger and stronger, and should be very delicious to eat. The large black dog appeared, drooling at Little Terror. Why was he the same as Tigress? How much immortal gold did you get? Ling Han asked. Pay. Do you think that divine metal is some cabbage that can be found anywhere you want? The large black dog immediately shouted. Grandpa Dog came back to get some fresh air. Can't I? Ling Han's face was full of suspicion. Did you get into trouble and deliberately came back to hide? The large black dog immediately yawned, his eyes darting about incessantly. As expected, this darn dog was not one to stay put and cause trouble everywhere it went. Thankfully, it was a 9th firmament immortal king. Otherwise, it would have been beaten to death many times over. It said a few words and slipped away. Perhaps it had caused quite a bit of trouble this time. Ling Han ignored him. He drew out a crimson clear flame pill and shared it with the Empress and bewitching maiden Ro. After 3 years, he had only managed to concoct a total of 3 pills. One had to know that a single crimson clear flame pill was enough to make immortal kings below the 5th heaven fight over it. To refine 3 in 3 years, this was extremely shocking. They took the medicine and began to refine it. The refinement of a celestial king level great pill was very slow. After a whole year, Ling Han finally finished refining this great pill. And this was after he had used the acceleration of the flow of time. Otherwise, it would have taken him about 1,000 years. The improvement was very obvious. At first, He had been in the early stage of the third heaven, and now he had suddenly reached the late stage. 10 billion years of bitter cultivation could only improve so little. In reality, the improvement of alchemical pills would not take into account the acceleration of the flow of time. With Ling Han's acceleration of time by 1,000 times, a single crimson clear flame pill would only save him 10 million years of bitter cultivation. Thus, this kind of improvement was reasonable. I can't take another crimson clear flame pill in the short term. As an alchemist, Ling Han was the most sensitive to the effects of alchemical pills. There were toxins left behind by alchemical pills in his body, and there would be great problems if he took another crimson clear flame pill without waiting for these toxins to be purged. He examined carefully. These toxins were actually regulations, but their level was very high. With his ability, he could not dispel them in one go. He had to slowly grind his way through them, and thus it took a very long time. When Ling Han came out of seclusion, the Empress also came out very soon. She, too, had the grand cosmic infinite body, and the acceleration of the flow of time was the same as Ling Han's, but bewitching Maiden Row was slower. Not long after, Ji Wuming came to visit, and he revealed Ling Han's true identity with a single glance. Ling Han couldn't help but feel gloomy. At first, he was confident that he could deceive everyone. Ho ho, such freakish talent in martial art. And you are also a grandmaster alchemist. There are not many people like you, Ji Wuming said. Ji Wuming said, moreover, I didn't believe that you would die so easily, so I immediately guessed that it was you. Thankfully, Tian Sheng had only battled him once, and did not understand him. Otherwise, he should have guessed that not only was he not dead, but he had also already come to the academy. Not only Ji Wuming, but Yin Xianlu, and the others also came one after another. They all had the same guess. Ling Han definitely could not have died in the celestial realm, though they did not know when he would come here. There were also Ling Hua, and the other incarnations of the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. They had come together with the Empress and the others. The source powers of heaven and earth naturally had superior aptitude, and their cultivation speed was astonishing. At present, the 9 of them were all 5th heaven celestial kings. However, success or failure was also due to source powers. It was practically impossible for them to break through to the heavenly venerable tier, as they were bound to the level of regulations. Their peaceful life was very soon shattered, because Xiaoing Xiong had come again. Let's battle again in the 9 Deaths formation. He issued a challenge. Ling Han was surprised. Why had this guy come again so quickly? He must have eaten some natural treasure, and his battle prowess had suddenly soared greatly. Otherwise, how could he have such confidence? All right. He nodded. In a battle of equals, he did not fear anyone. 3 days later, Xiaoing Xiong said. This challenge very quickly alarmed the academy. After all, it was a prodigy on the battle prowess rankings. Not only were the students of this year very interested, but there were also a considerable number of people from the previous year and the year before that who decided to go and watch the battle. 3 days passed very quickly. Ling Han walked towards the 9 Deaths formation. When he arrived, he couldn't help but grimace. There were too many people here, weren't there? It was a black mass, and there were not only humans but also half-humans. Some had tails, some had goat heads, some had donkey heads, and there were all kinds of races. The present fiery frost plain had gathered the prodigies of all the races of the origin world. It was a huge hodgepodge. Xiaoing Xiong was already waiting for him. He sat cross-legged on the ground, and a sword was placed on his lap, but it was not unsheathed. He was like a dragon hidden in the abyss, and once unsheathed, he would be able to shock the world. Treasures could not be used in challenging the levels, but he was only borrowing the 9 Deaths formation to have a fair battle with Ling Han. You've come, Xiaoing Xiong said solemnly. Ling Han smiled slightly. Is this what you're relying on? He pointed at the other's sword. We'll know after we fight. Ling Han chuckled and walked into the 3rd level of the 9 Deaths formation. He would not be complacent. His opponent was only worse than him, because he did not cultivate physical techniques. In terms of the power of rules, he was not inferior to him in a battle of the same level, or only at a slight disadvantage. If he went to fight in the 4th level, he would be at a great disadvantage. Xiao Xiong also walked in and confronted Ling Han. "You're not fighting?" Ling Han was surprised. Xiao Xiong casually waved his sword, and without even unsheathing it he said, "I have." Ling Han chuckled. "You're not here to spar. You have other motives, right?" Chapter 2539. Smart, Xiao Xiong praised. "I do have something to discuss with you." Ling Han was surprised. What could be discussed between him and Xiao Xiong? He pondered for a moment before saying, "Please speak." "We discovered an ancient ruin, and we hope that you can join us," Xiao Xiong said solemnly. Ling Han nodded. "Such a good thing, and you actually thought of me." Not only were they not friends, but they were also rivals in love. Of course, this was Xiao Xiong's way of doing things. If there was a good thing like exploring an ancient ruin, how could it be Ling Han's turn? Xiao Xiong snorted. "If it wasn't necessary, you wouldn't have such an opportunity for no reason. That's because to open the ruin, we need many Super Emperor stars with evolution indexes of 11 and above. We don't have enough right now." Ling Han couldn't help but ponder whether these words were true or false. Was this a trap for him? After all, if he left the martial institution, there wouldn't be a celestial venerable guarding it. "I need more information about this ruin," Ling Han said. "Take it." Xiao Xiong threw over a jade talisman. "I knew you would have such a request. Take it and study it. I'll come and find you in 3 days." Ling Han took the jade talisman, and Xiao Xiong turned and left without any hesitation. With a smile, Ling Han also exited the great array, and just happened to see Xiao Xiong flying away. The surrounding people were all completely confused. Who had won this battle? How could it be over so quickly? Ling Han returned to his cave and shared the information in the jade talisman with the Empress. The information was very detailed. This ancient ruin once belonged to a 9th heaven celestial king. It was said that he died because he failed to become a quasi-celestial venerable. Thus, this ancient ruin might contain the experiences of this celestial king. They wanted to obtain it and use it as a reference, so that they wouldn't take the wrong path. Even though Xiao Xiong was a Super Emperor star and had an evolution index of 11, he didn't have the confidence to become a celestial venerable. Even if celestial venerables were immortal, there were only 10 or so in a plane. The number was shockingly low. Could it be that there have been too few geniuses since ancient times? Did they lack Super Emperor stars? It was just that becoming a heavenly sovereign was too difficult. Even with a Super Emperor star, there was a high chance of failure, and one's cultivation would turn to nothing. A failed case might be more valuable than a successful one. As such, even a Super Emperor star like Xiao Xiong was tempted and desperately wanted to obtain it. Ling Han's heart was also moved. It was one thing for him to have confidence in himself, but the truth was another. "We might as well take a look," the Empress said. Ling Han nodded. It's not just this immortal king's insights on becoming a heavenly lord. The person who has the right to take that step is definitely an outstanding 9th firmament immortal king. His collection should be astonishing. Call the large black dog over. He's a 9th heaven celestial king. And Vari. There was no need to call the others. If even the large black dog couldn't handle it, then it would be useless even if Ling Hua and the others joined forces. Ling Han went to inform the large black dog, and this despicable dog immediately agreed. He also wanted to see the insights of a celestial king, breaking through to the heavenly lord tier, especially the ones that had failed. This was because every celestial venerables had opened up their own path, and there was not much meaning in learning from them. However, they could learn from their failures, and thus avoid them. Vari had never been enthusiastic about this kind of thing, but he didn't object either. In any case, he could refine the dimensional scroll, no matter what state he was in. With these two powerful reinforcements in place, Ling Han naturally felt much more assured. 3 days later, Xiao Xiong silently arrived. After conversing with Ling Han for a while, he left in satisfaction because he had obtained the answer he needed. Another month later, Xiao Xiong sent someone to inform him that everyone was present, and they would set off the next morning. Ling Han, the Empress, the large black dog, and Vari arrived at the agreed place together. Bewitching Maiden Rose stayed in the academy. Her strength was not enough, so it was better for her to stay in the academy and continue cultivating. Little Terror also stayed behind to protect this little bewitching maiden. Of course, the spatial celestial tool was also left behind by Ling Han. If they cultivated in the academy, the advancement of the women would be much faster. There were many people who came. Ji Wuming, Fire Hibiscus, and many others that Ling Han didn't recognize. They should all be this batch of students, but they came from different planes. The Rain Emperor, Shi Chanzi, Jialan, and the others were not qualified. They were imperial stars, but not super imperial stars. Their evolution index was only 10, and they were not qualified to participate in this exploration. Xiaoying Xiong, Gu Hai, and Miao Hua were all beings above imperial stars. When it was the large black dog's turn, Miao Hua immediately humphed coldly. No pets. Pet your sister, your whole family are pets. The large black dog immediately pounced, and with a pung, pressed Miao Hua onto the ground. That brat is my human pet, do you understand? The large black dog had always been mischievous. He was clearly a ninth heaven celestial king, yet he had never revealed his true strength. Only now did everyone realize that his battle prowess was incredibly powerful. So it's a senior. Forgive us for our lack of manners. Gu Hui tried to smooth things over. The large black dog spat at Miao Hua, and only then did he release his paw. Miao Hua was almost angered to death. He was a super imperial star. Yet a person, no, a dog actually spat on his face. However, the large black dog's strength was who knew how many times stronger than his, so he could only watch on helplessly. He swore in his heart that when his cultivation level was the same as the large black dog's, he would definitely take revenge for this. Xiaoying Xiong and Gu Hai exchanged a look, both frowning slightly. Though they had invited Ling Han, they did not harbor any good intentions, and planned to kill him in the ancient ruins. Now, however, there was an additional large black dog with unfathomable strength, which made things difficult for them. Is everyone here? A super imperial star asked. He was a fifth heaven celestial king, and he was not a native of the Firefrost Plain. His name was Lu Hao, and he had come to the academy over 3 billion years ago. We're still missing one, Gu Hui said. Who is it? Another person asked. His name was Luo Yangqiu, and he was also a fifth heaven celestial king. Haha, have I come too late? A long laugh rang out, and a terrifying aura surged over. A celestial king flew over, his entire body radiating a terrifying aura, and there were even 9 rays of light revolving around him. Ninth heaven celestial king Ling Han's eyes narrowed. That was Imperial Void. He was definitely mortal enemies with Feng Qing's bloodline, and he also had a grudge with Imperial Void. He had been repeatedly targeted and coveted by Imperial Void. Why had this old fellow come? The reason was very simple. Celestial King Imperial Void was also about to break through to the heavenly sovereign tier, so the failure of another celestial king was extremely meaningful to him. In fact, he needed this information even more than Ling Han and the others. This was because he was about to break through to the heavenly sovereign tier, so he had to be careful. Senior, a ninth heaven celestial king had appeared, and even though they were all super imperial stars, they had no choice but to bow. Celestial King Imperial Void smiled and said, "There's no need to be so polite." Although he had an advantage in terms of cultivation level, if he did not break through to the heavenly sovereign tier, the people here would soon catch up to him in terms of cultivation level, and they might even surpass him. This was because the heavenly sovereign tier was too difficult to break through. How long had he been stuck at the ninth heaven celestial king tier? Chapter 2540. The Imperial Void Celestial King naturally noticed the large black dog as well. His smiling expression immediately disappeared, and his eyes became sharp and filled with killing intent. Despicable dog, you actually dare to appear in front of me. The large black dog's eyes darted around, and he showed a guilty expression, but he did not back down and shouted, "Why wouldn't I dare?" The Imperial Void Celestial King attacked brazenly. He was a ninth heaven celestial king, so what did he have to fear? In fact, among ninth heaven celestial kings, he was also one of the best. Apart from heavenly venerables, how many people could suppress him? Boom! The large hand pressed down, and all the stars in the sky trembled. This was an extremely powerful celestial king. All the hair on the large black dog's body stood on end. Xiao, his figure suddenly flashed, and his speed was astonishingly fast. Before the large hand pressed down, he had already run out. Then he stood up, pointed at the Imperial Void Celestial King, and said, "Imperial Void, little brat, Grandpa Dog will not lower himself to your level. If I beat you until you cry, your master will run out to make trouble for Grandpa Dog." Everyone was speechless. It was clearly the large black dog who did not dare to fight, but he still said such nice words. He was really despicable. However, to be able to escape from the Imperial Void Celestial King, this large black dog's strength was definitely not ordinary, and could not be underestimated. The Imperial Void Celestial King did not attack again. He already knew that the large black dog was cunning and specialized in escaping, so it was extremely difficult to capture him. It could be said that a heavenly venerate had to make a move. Humph, the descendants of the fate-born heavenly venerate are all such cowards, he said coldly. Ling Han was displeased, and he coughed lightly and said, "Little brat over there, why are you so ugly?" The Imperial Void Celestial King was stunned. He was ugly. He was not a peerlessly handsome man, but he was definitely not ugly. Moreover, he had already cultivated to their level. So what was the point of beauty and ugliness? The key was strength, and strength was the deciding factor. So this brat was deliberately provoking him. Ha! A mere third heaven junior also dared to act arrogantly in front of him. How laughable! He clasped his hands behind his back, and said, "Although the Academy has rules that one cannot fight across two tiers, but since you actively provoked me, no one will blame me even if I beat you up." Ling Han laughed. "Imperial Void, do you dare to fight in the 9 Extremes formation?" The Imperial Void Immortal King scoffed. "I'm a dignified king of the 9 heavens, so why should I lower myself to the same level as you? It's just the 9th heaven. Who here can't reach that level? So there's no need to show off," Ling Han said lightly. "If you're capable, then fight at the same level. That way, the winner will be more convincing." Xiao Xiong and the others nodded their heads. If any of them found it difficult to break through to the 9th celestial layer, then they would not be qualified to enter the martial courtyard. A high realm only meant that you cultivated early. Whether or not you could break through to the Empyrean realm was the key. And what kind of people are more likely to break through to the Celestial Master realm? Of course, those with a higher evolution index would be more ferocious in battles of the same level. "Do you dare or are you afraid?" Ling Han asked. Imperial Void Immortal King felt a bit embarrassed. He was used to being high and mighty. In the immortal domain, he was even more unbridled and unbridled, killing whoever he wanted. However, it was different here. Even heavenly venerable Feng Qing had to keep a low profile here, or else he would be taught a lesson. He thought about it. He was also a super emperor star, and his evolution index was as high as 11. Even if his realm was suppressed, his combat awareness would not be affected, so he would naturally have the upper hand in a fight. Was there a need to be afraid? "Alright, let's fight," Imperial Void Immortal King said. Xiao Xiong and the others immediately shook their heads and sighed on behalf of Imperial Void Immortal King. "You still don't know that this guy is Zhang San or Li Si, right? He left his name on the first immemorial stone, and reached as high as 8, suppressing Tianxing. Moreover, he fought with Xiao Xiong a few days ago, and in the end, Xiao Xiong suffered a crushing defeat. This guy's evolution index should be at 12. Only Xiao Xiong knew that Ling Han's evolution index had not reached 12. It was just that his physical skills were too terrifying, making his battle prowess comparable to the most monstrous with an evolution index of 12. This was information that he had obtained after suffering a crushing defeat, and he did not plan to share it with anyone. Instead, he planned to take down Ling Han and obtain the secret of his powerful physical skills for himself. He naturally had ulterior motives for inviting Ling Han this time. Imperial Void Immortal King really did not know who Ling Han was, and only thought that everyone was a super emperor star. In that case, what did he have to fear? The two of them quickly arrived in front of the 9 extinction formation. Ling Han directly chose the 3rd formation and entered. Imperial Void Immortal King did not hesitate, and also entered. This could be counted as a same-level battle. He would mercilessly attack and give Ling Han a crushing defeat, making him suffer the consequences of his own actions. Young man, you still have a long way to go. Boom. Imperial Void Immortal King still wanted to say a few more words, but he saw an iron fist smashing over with terrifying flames of the Great Tao. Humph. He had no choice but to shut up. His palms flew out and met Ling Han's attack. The two of them fought, each using their ultimate moves and exchanging blows. It was incomparably intense. Imperial Void Immortal King was somewhat shocked, and even more jealous. This was because Ling Han faintly had the intention of suppressing him. In a same-level battle, he was actually slightly inferior to his opponent. One had to know that he was already a Super Emperor star, with an evolution index as high as 11. What was stronger than him with an evolution index of 12? Although there was not much evidence, if one's evolution index reached 12, they would definitely be able to become a heavenly sovereign. For example, Hibiscus. She was such a supreme genius. It was just that heavenly sovereign green fire wanted her to soar higher. So he sealed her, and only appeared in this generation. It was just that although the 3 heavenly sovereigns had all made divinations, they had clearly been deceived by heaven and earth. The biggest fortuitous opportunity on the path of cultivation was simply a trap. This was an off-topic topic. How long had Imperial Void Immortal King been in the 9th heaven? Several epochs. But he only had a vague hope. He did not know how far he was from breaking through. However, this young man in front of him almost had the potential to directly become a heavenly sovereign. How could he not be envious? Becoming an Empyrean was his greatest wish, as well as his greatest hatred. It surpassed everything else. Damn it, he said in his heart. With a thought, a green ancient bell immediately appeared above his head. This was his immortal artifact, the ancient Qian bell. Dang! The ancient bell rang by itself, creating a ripple that spread in all directions. As the bell rang, even the space within the formation began to shatter. The might of an immortal artifact was shockingly great. Imperial Void Immortal King sneered. Young man, your foundation is far from enough to contend with me. This ancient Qian bell was forged from 17 types of immortal metals. It is equivalent to 17 immortal kings joining forces to attack. How will you block it? Who is the strongest in the same realm? Immortal artifact? Why? It was simple. First, it was indestructible. Second, it was invincible. These 2 advantages added together were amazing. The ancient Qian bell was forged from 17 types of immortal metals. Although its hardness could not be increased, its sharpness was the same. However, it was equivalent to 17 immortal kings joining forces. This was terrifying. The bell rang out, destroying the space layer by layer. Its power was boundless. However, Ling Han revealed a smile. Chapter 2541. Ling Han was dumbfounded. Of course not. He was happy because the Imperial Void Celestial King said that this bell was forged from 17 celestial metals. 17 kinds, if they were swallowed by the Divine Demon Sword. Then the Divine Demon Sword's power would definitely improve further. If it was another place, Ling Han would definitely be helpless, because the ancient bell was a 9th heaven-level precious tool. Putting aside the fact that he couldn't suppress it, after it automatically awakened and released its power, it could easily injure Ling Han severely. But here, under the suppression of cultivation level, the ancient bell would fall to 3rd heaven level. In a battle of the same cultivation level, even if there were 17 opponents, what did Ling Han have to fear? He laughed loudly, and finally used his body technique. Instantly his battle prowess skyrocketed. So what if it was a celestial tool? No matter how strong a celestial tool was, it was only a tool, not a person, and had an upper limit. It was true that you were the sharpest and the sturdiest, but battle prowess wasn't enough with these 2 points. The Imperial Void Celestial King was incredibly shocked. Ling Han's battle prowess suddenly soared by 4 or 5 times at least. Ling Han's body technique and the power of regulation showed their might together. And it wasn't as simple as 1 + 1. but 3 times, 5 times so much. You. He paled in shock, finally knowing why Ling Han dared to challenge him. Fuck, was this really a third heaven celestial king? Humph, I have a celestial tool in hand. What can you do to me? The Imperial Void Celestial King recalled the ancient bell, and a myriad of magnificent brilliance fell, protecting him within. This clearly showed that my battle prowess was inferior to yours. But my defense was invincible, so come and break it. It was very shameless, but also very effective. 17 kinds of celestial metals fused together was equivalent to 17 celestial kings joining forces to protect, and added with the Imperial Void Celestial King's own strength. This was really an unassailable defense. The Imperial Void Celestial King stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes fixed on Ling Han. He had already decided in his heart that if there was a chance, he would definitely kill this freak of a young man. Is that so? Ling Han smiled lightly, and also drew the divine demon sword. Shwa! A cold light shone, and Ling Han swung his sword, slashing towards the ancient bell's treasure chi that fell. Boom! With a loud bang, the chi of treasures was actually torn apart. Fortunately, the remaining chi of treasures fell in time to protect the gap, not giving Ling Han the opportunity to break through. Imperial Void Immortal King was greatly astonished. His treasured artifact was formed from the fusion of 17 types of immortal metal. Even though it was impossible to truly fuse them into one, it was still equivalent to 17 immortal kings joining hands. Wasn't that still not enough? However, Ling Han's sword was even more terrifying. It had truly fused the might of the immortal gold together. It was like a third firmament immortal king had entered the fourth firmament through arduous cultivation. These were 2 completely different paths of improvement. How experienced was he? He immediately exclaimed, "This is devouring metal steel." In the entire world, only the devouring metal or had the ability to increase its own strength by swallowing all the metals in the world. It could even break through the limits of immortal metal and refine it into a treasure for an Empyrean. He knew that it was because Empyrean sealed Qing had such a treasure. Is this destiny? Imperial Void Immortal King's eyes spat out flames. His evolution index was 12, and he even possessed the devouring metal. It was as if the heavens and earth were using this method to tell him that this was the next Empyrean. He wasn't convinced. How was he inferior? He had bitterly cultivated for several epochs, and always stood at the peak of the Immortal King realm. Why wasn't he the one who obtained such a fortuitous encounter? Ah! He roared. The immortal bell buzzed and vibrated, emitting intense fluctuations. Imperial Void Immortal King's emotions were somewhat out of control. He wanted to erupt with even stronger power and blast Ling Han into dregs. Unfortunately, this was the 9 extremes formation that was laid out by an Empyrean. It wasn't even 1 or 2 steps, but 5 or 6 steps. How could Imperial Void Immortal King break it? Ling Han brandished his sword and slashed madly. Ding ding ding, wung wung wung. He didn't attack Imperial Void Immortal King, but slashed at the ancient bell instead. It was because he knew that it was impossible to kill Imperial Void Immortal King. Even if his cultivation realm was suppressed in the formation, there was an Empyrean overseeing the martial academy. How could he be allowed to act recklessly? Then he would take advantage of him. He brandished his sword with his right hand, and clenched his left hand into a fist, striking the ancient bell again and again. This was the Rage Fist. Recently, he had integrated various fist intents into it. It was not completely formed yet, but there was a direction. The Imperial Void Immortal King could be considered as a rare opponent. Moreover, Ling Han's hatred towards him was not light, and it just happened to be in line with the concept of the Rage Fist, allowing him to master this fist technique even faster. What kind of character was the Imperial Void Immortal King? Even if his cultivation was suppressed, it didn't mean that his judgment was the same. He couldn't help but be angered to the point of going mad. This brat actually dared to use him as a sparring partner? What kind of contempt was this? He erupted with rage and began to counterattack. The ancient bell shone and symbols jumped about one after another, but they were immediately suppressed by a mysterious power. There was nothing he could do about it. This was the 9 absolutes array. Even if a 9th firmament immortal monarch entered, He would have to be at a certain cultivation realm. Ling Han cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and began to execute his raging fist. In the past few days, he had already integrated all kinds of fist intents into the rage fist, but it was a hodgepodge. Not only did it not increase the power of the rage fist, but it was also nondescript. All kinds of willpower clashed, and it was even a little ridiculous. It was like a drunkard punching. However, Ling Han didn't care at all. His heart was clear, and he had the heart to tolerate the world. He wanted to create a cultivation technique that belonged to him. Techniques didn't have to be limited to fists, swords, and sabers. At his level, was there any difference? Yes, there was a difference whether he used an immortal artifact or not. But if he tossed this aside, there was no difference. I have the heart to tolerate the world. My intent is this heaven, this earth, this free and unrestrained heart. Ling Han suddenly laughed loudly. The intent of the rage fist was too small, and it caused him to be limited to the emotions of anger. This was a minor Tao. My Tao is to make the heavens unable to cover my eyes, and make the earth unable to bury my heart. I am me, and I am unique, Ling Han said in his heart. His thoughts instantly became clear. Clang! Even in the 9 absolutes array, the sound of thunder immediately rang out. Dark clouds surged and lightning intersected. This was the arrival of the heavenly tribulation. Ling Han quivered. With a single thought, he actually triggered the heavenly tribulation. Damn, was there a need to be so exaggerated? However, he also understood that his Tao, which was only in its embryonic form, was incomparably awesome. It caused the super high-grade plane to be jealous and want to wipe him out. One had to know that the stronger the plane, the more tolerant it was. Here, even a 7th-step heavenly venerate wouldn't be struck by lightning the moment they appeared. But now, Ling Han had only formed an embryonic form of martial art in his mind, and it caused heaven and earth to target him. This showed how extraordinary his Tao was. You, Imperial Void Celestial King, was shocked to the extreme. This fellow was too terrifying. Tao light was flickering all over his body. This was comprehension, but he was clearly fighting. And he could also comprehend the Tao like this? He even triggered the heavenly tribulation. How could this be ordinary? This was too dangerous. Who was this person? Imperial Void Celestial King's gaze was resolute. He decided to disrupt Ling Han's comprehension. He definitely had to. No matter what Ling Han was comprehending, this was too terrifying. He definitely couldn't let him succeed. Purple light appeared on Imperial Void Celestial King's body, and his aura instantly rose by a large amount. This was a secret art created by Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing. He had learned it, but he normally wouldn't use it. Why? This secret art was too domineering. It was formed based on the cultivation and physique of a Heavenly Venerate. Even if he was a 9th Heaven Celestial King, he couldn't casually use it, and he would have to pay a huge price. But this time, for the sake of Ling Han, he didn't hesitate to harm himself. I remembered wrong. Yu Woody wasn't killed by the main character, so the purple gold divine rod isn't in the main character's hands. I'll make a correction here. Among the Empress and Hunyeo, one of their celestial artifacts was originally refined from the purple gold divine rod, but now it naturally isn't. I can't change the previous content, because the chapter has been locked. Because it doesn't affect reading, there's only a small flaw, and I'll explain it here. Chapter 2542. To be able to become an Empyrean, which one of them wasn't an eternally rare genius who walked their own path? Of course, Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing was the same. The mystic art he had created was called the Fish Dragon art. The name was not domineering, but it implied that it was like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, transforming from a mortal to a dragon. But the celestial venerables were already supreme existences. If they were to leap through the dragon's gate, just how powerful would they become? Unthinkable, just like how the origin-born Heavenly Venerable had created the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. This fish dragon technique was a secret technique that belonged to the Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing. The difference was that the indestructible Heaven's Scroll could be cultivated by cultivators of different cultivation levels, but the fish dragon technique could not. It was true that Empyreans were weaker than others, But it did not mean that every Empyrean was a good teacher. Once the fish dragon technique was activated, the Imperial Void Immortal King's aura changed immediately. His entire body was shrouded in purple light, exuding an unparalleled domineering aura as he charged toward Ling Han. Kuang, the heavenly tribulation, was also formed at the right time, and it fell toward Ling Han. The crux of the matter was that the Imperial Void Immortal King had attacked first. In other words, at least in this strike, the heavens and the earth didn't think that the Imperial Void Immortal King was interfering with Ling Han's tribulation, and it wouldn't target him. For a moment, it was equivalent to two great powerhouses joining hands to deal with Ling Han. This attack was too terrifying. The Imperial Void Immortal King's battle prowess soared to the peak of the fifth firmament under the augmentation of the fish dragon art. The heavenly tribulation this time was also incomparably violent, close to the sixth firmament. Ling Han laughed heartily. He didn't seem to care at all. He continued with his fist and sword. He had the heart of invincibility. He slashed out with his sword towards the Imperial Void Immortal King, while his left hand still clenched into a fist and punched towards the heavenly tribulation. Boom! A loud noise was heard, and Ling Han staggered a few steps back. However, he laughed out loud, and his state of mind became even more perfect. His fists and sword moved at the same time, and he felt extremely satisfied. His martial Dao finally had an embryonic form, the Xingyi perfection. So what if it's a heavenly tribulation? I'm my own body, I'm heaven and earth. Ling Han continued to gain enlightenment. His fist technique was advancing towards perfection, and so was his sword technique. His Dao was not divided into fists or swords. It was just a way to display his power. The root of it was that he had an invincible heart and a will to pursue freedom, which turned into his own Dao. Boom! The heavenly tribulation was rampaging, but the Imperial Void Celestial King did not make a move. He merely continued to retreat. He did not dare to easily involve himself in the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation was too terrifying, and it made his heart palpitate. Once he was about to undergo the heavenly tribulation, would he still be able to interfere with Ling Han? However, even though he had retreated, Ling Han didn't plan to let him go. He leaped and chased after him, his divine demon sword slashing endlessly. With each strike, he would coordinate with the suppression of the celestial tool, thus allowing the divine demon sword to draw out some of its essence. In this way, he would steal the celestial metal from the ancient bell. This was naturally very slow, but it was effective. However, the heavenly tribulation really was extremely terrifying. Ling Han was injured, Immortal King blood splashing everywhere. After all, this was the fiery frost plane. The might of the heavenly tribulation was too overbearing. It gave Ling Han a headache. However, he did not withdraw from this state. Instead, he tried his best to enrich his Dao. Although he could continue to perfect it in the future, he had comprehended it suddenly this time. So his progress was undoubtedly the fastest. If he missed this opportunity, he could only take it slow in the future. The formation of a martial art cultivation technique was a long process in the first place. The Imperial Void Celestial King was extremely gloomy. It was clearly Ling Han who was undergoing the heavenly tribulation, but he was being suppressed. What kind of person was there? The heavenly tribulation was so violent, but he didn't properly undergo it, and actually wanted to be distracted? Weren't you afraid of being struck to death by the heavenly tribulation? Logically speaking, one had to be careful when undergoing the heavenly tribulation, fearing that others would interfere and be doomed eternally. However, Ling Han took the initiative to attack others. He was practically a freak. He had no fighting spirit. Under the suppression of his cultivation level, he couldn't do anything to Ling Han at all. Fight my ass. When he went out, he could just stretch out his hand and suppress Ling Han. Why did he need to struggle here? But he wanted to leave, but Ling Han wouldn't let him. That was because he hadn't completely absorbed the essence of the ancient bell. How could Ling Han be willing to let the Imperial Void Celestial King go? After this time, would the Imperial Void Celestial King still agree to a fair battle with Ling Han in the Nine Deaths formation? It was impossible. Hence, the next time he wanted to extract the divine metal essence of the ancient bell, He would have to wait until Ling Han became a ninth heaven celestial king. The time was too long. Why are you running? The battle isn't over yet, Ling Han said. Feng Qing's lineage had gone too far. It was rare to encounter such a good opportunity, so he naturally wouldn't let the Imperial Void Celestial King go. The Imperial Void Celestial King was speechless. He gritted his teeth, but was determined not to make a move. He couldn't afford to provoke this kind of heavenly tribulation. What was more terrifying was that the heavenly tribulation wouldn't be affected by the 9 deaths formation. If it landed on him, it would definitely be a 9th heaven, but his cultivation level was suppressed by the Great Formation, and he was only a 3rd heaven. Wasn't this courting death? It was precisely because he thought of this that he was extremely determined not to make a move, and only parry. He would endure. After enduring for a day, he would break through with all his strength. In the fiery frost plain, the duration of the heavenly tribulation was 1 day. Ling Han also knew this, and a smile appeared on his face. If there was 1 day, it would be enough to let the divine demon sword eat its fill. 1 day passed, and the heavenly tribulation could only helplessly dissipate. No matter what plane it was, there would always be rules to follow, unlike madness, which could do as it pleased after transforming into a plane. The Imperial Void Celestial King erupted again. With the fish dragon technique activated, he broke through with all his strength. This time, even Ling Han couldn't stop him. After all, the other was one of the strongest celestial kings in the history of the celestial realm, so his battle prowess was naturally powerful. He stopped and revealed a smile. He had gained too much from this battle. Firstly, his heart of martial art had finally reached great accomplishment and formed his own Tao. Secondly, the divine demon sword had extracted at least 70% of the essence of the ancient bell, and its power had increased greatly. He also walked out of the formation and saw that Xiaoxiong and the others were all waiting outside, and the Imperial Void Celestial King had already recovered his calm expression, and the aura of a 9th heaven celestial king surged, as if he could lose control at any moment and attack. The large black dog stood on its hind legs beside Ling Han and placed a paw on Ling Han's shoulder. It was as if this brat was under the protection of Grandpa Dog, so who would dare to make a move against him? The Imperial Void Celestial King frowned. He naturally wasn't afraid of the large black dog, but the large black dog had also cultivated with a celestial venerable in the past, so how could his battle prowess be underestimated? With him protecting Ling Han, the possibility of him succeeding was too low, close to impossible. Was it so difficult to kill a junior in the 3rd heaven? Let's go, Gu Hui said. They didn't enter the formation to watch the battle, and that was to save face for Ling Han and the Imperial Void Celestial King. Otherwise, no matter who lost, they would lose face, and perhaps they wouldn't have the face to go to the ancient ruins again. But opening the ancient ruins required enough Super Emperor stars. And what if there weren't enough people? Everyone set out, and the Imperial Void Celestial King's expression flickered. He kept racking his brain, thinking about how to kill Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but think that he definitely had the halo of a star of calamity, and he hadn't exposed his identity at all. Yet he was still in conflict with the Imperial Void Celestial King. Everyone set out, and after 3 years, they finally arrived at their destination. This was a gloomy valley, filled with miasma. This miasma was extremely poisonous, and even celestial kings couldn't resist it for a long time, requiring the use of alchemical pills. Gu Hai and the others had long since prepared and distributed the alchemical pills to everyone. Ling Han didn't directly consume it, but first carefully examined it. With his eyesight as a 5-star alchemist, he could easily distinguish whether there was anything wrong with this alchemical pill or not. No problem. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 2543. He, the Empress, and the large black dog all consumed alchemical pills, but Wally didn't. He wasn't a true life form, and this kind of poison was ineffective on him. Everyone naturally had their own methods to verify the authenticity of the alchemical pills, and soon, everyone had consumed the antidote. They continued to advance. There were no other life forms here, and it was an absolute land of death. No one spoke. Under the lead of Gu Hai and the others, they soon arrived at the end of the valley. A large door appeared here, embedded in the mountain wall. Can't we directly blast open the mountain wall? Someone asked. Clearly, this door required the living blood of a super emperor star to open. But how could this mountain wall block the mighty power of so many celestial kings? Did they think that there were heavenly venerables everywhere? Miao Hua shook his head. The ancient site isn't built inside the mountain. These two large doors are similar to a teleportation gate, and are connected to an alternate space. Everyone nodded. Then there was no other way, and they could only enter from the door. They all came to the door, and then cut their fingers, smearing their blood on the door. As streaks of blood were smeared on, the door shone with a strange light, and very soon, the door actually became transparent. As it turned out, the door wasn't open, but had instead become transparent, and then disappeared. Everyone had bled, but the door didn't completely disappear, and there was still that layer, just a sliver. If there's one more portion of living blood, the door will disappear, Gu Hui said. Then I'll drip another portion, Lu Hao said. Miao Hua shook his head. It's no use. One person can only be counted once, and it's the same no matter how much. The others thought for a moment, and then nodded. If that wasn't the case, there was no need to call so many people. One person could slowly bleed, and it wouldn't be blood essence. Then what do we do? Everyone frowned. They had thought that there were enough people, but there was still one missing. Were they going back just like that? They were unwilling, but what could they do? I think I can help you all. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Everyone was startled, and they all looked to the left. Behind a huge rock, a beautiful woman walked out. Her figure was extremely tall, not inferior to the men, and her jade neck was long and slender, snow-white and smooth like a swan, noble and elegant. And her figure was also extremely alluring, outlined by a moon-white tight dress. Every curve made one's heart sway. Her body was wrapped with 5 colors, indicating that she was a 5th heaven celestial king. Who are you? Gu Hui asked in a heavy voice. Although this female immortal king was extremely beautiful, how could he be moved so easily? Most importantly, there was also an empress whose beauty was unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. After getting used to seeing such absolute beauty, would he still be moved by other beauties? This female immortal king was slightly taken aback. She was filled with confidence in her own charm, but Gu Hui was actually so calm and collected. This caused her to find it somewhat hard to accept. However, of course, she would not be so careless. She showed her thoughts on her face and smiled as she said, "My name is Lu Yufei, and just like everyone else, I want to enter this ancient historical remnant. However, I never thought that I would need the blood of so many super emperor stars to open it." Of clan, Emperor Shao, an emperor star. And you're also a super emperor star? Luo Yangqiu asked. Lu Yufei smiled. I'll answer them one by one. First of all, I'm a super emperor star. Otherwise, why would I say that I can help you all? Second, Lord Hefeng failed to become a heavenly venerate and died. It's not a big secret. Those who are interested can certainly find clues from ancient records and deduce the location of his immortal mansion. The original owner of this cave dwelling was Hefeng, Immortal King. Is that it? Everyone looked at each other. Naturally, they would not believe her so easily. However, there were 2 stage 9 celestial kings in their group, and most of the others were stage 6 celestial kings. How could they be afraid of her? I only wish to obtain opportunities together with everyone. I believe that all of you wouldn't mind having one more person, right? After all, we need so many people to open the door. Most importantly, everyone can get a copy of the handwritten note of Immortal King, Hefeng breaking through to the heavenly paragon realm. Lu Yufei said persuasively. These words were indeed very reasonable. An Immortal King's handwritten note could be copied by anyone. It wasn't like a heavenly material or earthly treasure, where one more person meant one less share. You are welcome to join us. Gu Hui looked around everyone's faces, and seeing that the majority of them had nodded, he extended an invitation to Lu Yufei on behalf of everyone. Lu Yufei walked over gracefully, her bearing elegant and enchanting. If it wasn't for the Empress, she would definitely be filled with a fatal attraction. Even celestial kings would be moved. It was a pity that her charm had been greatly reduced in comparison to him. She took another look at the Empress. This kind of exquisite beauty caused even her heart to beat faster. When she arrived at the door, she cut her finger, and a few drops of blood dripped out. Instantly, the door that had been close to transparent in the first place completely faded, revealing a pitch-black passageway. Sure enough, she was also a stage 9 celestial king. Everyone was surprised. It was naturally a piece of cake for a stage 9 celestial king to enter the martial arts academy. So why didn't this woman enter the #1 martial arts academy in the world? However, it was also possible that she was actually a student of the martial arts academy. It was just that she was very low-key, and not many people knew of her existence. No one asked. Everyone had their own secrets, and it would not be appropriate to ask rashly. Let's go. Everyone was skilled and bold, and they all stepped in. When they all entered, the door became solid again from its transparent state, and soon returned to its original appearance. 3 days later, a man walked in with large strides, 9 rays of light entwined around his body. Lu Yufei, do you think that just because you stole this lord's keepsake, this lord can't enter here? This man smirked coldly. I've been so good to you. Yet you only came for the secret inheritance of my He clan's ancestor, and the experience of a heavenly venerate. This lord will definitely make you pay the price. He stretched out a hand and made a cut, and a drop of blood landed on the door. This door that required the blood of many stage 9 celestial kings to open suddenly became transparent, and easily opened. I'm a descendant of the He clan, and my bloodline can naturally open this abode. However, this celestial king looked at the dark passageway like a giant mouth that wanted to swallow all who entered. It's about time. Though the ancestor has fallen, he has other arrangements. Using his own blood essence to nourish the origin return to 1 fruit, and then watering it with the blood of a dozen or so celestial kings, from stage 9 celestial kings, it will completely ripen. Lu Yufei, you thought that you got information about the origin return to 1 fruit from this lord, but you didn't know that this lord was testing you on purpose. If you had treated this lord wholeheartedly, this lord would not have treated you unfairly. However, since you chose to betray me, then offer up all your blood essence to help this lord take the final step. This is my He clan's treasure, and only the He clan can obtain such a fortuitous opportunity. No one can take it away. This celestial king strode forward and entered the passageway. Behind him, the door closed again, and streams of blood flowed out, forming the shape of a ghost's face. It was grinning, and it was filled with a terrifying aura. Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 2544. Ling Han and the others strode forward. As they walked, the surroundings became brighter. It wasn't the kind of bright day. Instead, it was as if they were strolling in the starry sky. In the distance, there were stars that emitted faint starlight. Although it was weak, there were so many of them that it was enough to light up this part of the world. They wanted to walk to either side, but they found that they were still in the same passageway. They couldn't split up, and the starlight scenes were just illusions. Looking up, there was the starry sky. Looking down, there was still the starry sky. It was very easy to lose one's sense of direction here. If it weren't for the fact that they would run into walls on both sides, they might really not know where to go as they walked. No one said anything. Everyone was very cautious. Although there was no danger at the moment, who would believe that there was no danger in an ancient site? Even the Imperial Void Celestial King didn't dare to be careless. Although he stood at the peak of the Celestial King realm, and could be ranked in the top 3 in the Celestial realm, this was the Fiery Frost Plain. There were definitely many Celestial Kings that could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, or even surpass him. Moreover, it was said that Hefeng already had the qualifications to become an Empyrean, so he was definitely stronger than him. Although the Celestial King was dead, the means he left behind could not be underestimated. It was better to be safe than sorry. He would rather be alarmed than lose the Jing province due to carelessness. The large black dog was also constantly maintaining an attacking stance. His battle prowess was slightly inferior to the Imperial Void Celestial King, but he was more sensitive to danger. This was what a thief would do. The despicable dog frowned and whispered, "Lord Dog has a bad premonition." Jinx. Ling Han shook his head, but his attention was highly focused. If the large black dog said that he sensed something amiss, then he definitely wasn't being timid. Rather, he must have truly sensed something. "Vari, I'm counting on you." Ling Han and the large black dog both pushed Wally to the front. This guy was the crystallization of several hundred epics in a plane. Although he wasn't good at battle, he was practically undying. It was because it could fuse and recover like immortal metal, just that it was far from being as sturdy as immortal metal. Therefore, he was a very good meat shield. Wally was stunned. "Why are you guys hiding behind me? I'm not a battle type." Ling Han and the large black dog both smiled and didn't reply. As he walked, he suddenly saw a huge beast running towards him. In the beginning, no one took it to heart, thinking that it was just an illusion. After all, the beast was running over from an endless distance. However, as it got closer and closer, everyone was astonished. This huge beast was wrapped in starlight and emitted an intense light. Its ferocious aura was almost overwhelming, but it did not seem fake. The great beast was like a tiger, but its body was covered in glowing lumps. It looked extremely disgusting. It carried a baleful aura as it pounced over. Everyone couldn't help but raise their hands to meet the attack. However, after one strike, they realized that it was indeed fake. It was just a light effect, but it was extremely realistic. They couldn't help but laugh at themselves. A group of celestial kings, and a super emperor star at that, had actually been tricked by an illusion. In just a short while, another great beast pounced out from the depths of the starry sky and launched an attack. However, it was still a phantom, which gave everyone a false alarm. Then the third great beast appeared. Everyone was shocked twice in a row and became a little lax. However, when the large beast pounced on them, everyone's expressions changed slightly. This time it was real. Humph! The Imperial Void Celestial King snorted softly. 2 streams of air shot out from his nostrils, transforming into a boundless shockwave. With a pung, this great beast was shattered into pieces. "It's really hard to tell whether it's real or fake," Luo Yangqiu said. "However, its battle prowess is only so," Miao Hua said proudly. "Don't be careless. There might be even stronger beings," Gu Hui warned. They advanced, and the great beasts continued to appear. Some were real, and some were fake. The Imperial Void Celestial King did not attack all the time. He was not these people's bodyguard, so he naturally did not have such an obligation. However, everyone was strong enough, and the great beasts here only had the battle prowess of a 5th heaven celestial king. They were very strong, but they were not strong enough to pose too much of a threat to anyone. Of course, the great beasts were sometimes real, and sometimes fake. This caused their nerves to unknowingly become tense. After all, even a 9th heaven celestial king would not dare to be attacked by a 5th heaven celestial king without any defense. Apart from Wally and Tiansheng, if Ling Han could raise the level of the indestructible heaven scroll, he would also have this kind of ability. After walking for 3 days, even the Imperial Void Celestial King showed a hint of exhaustion. This was not because he had expended a large amount of source power, but rather because of a kind of emotional agitation. How long would this situation continue? They could only passively defend, and could not actively attack. This was a situation that these prodigies had never encountered before. This made them extremely displeased, and it also affected their emotions. However, this passageway seemed to have no end. After another few days, there was still no sign of them walking out of it. Was this a labyrinth? Ling Han and the large black dog were both like Wally. When it came to analysis and calculation, if he said that he was second, no one would dare to say that they were first. Wally looked at the two of them in confusion. There was a confused expression on his face. "What do you mean by looking at me like this? Are we taking a detour?" Ling Han asked. At times, Wally would be extremely dazed again. Wally immediately said, "Up until now, we have walked through a total of 17 spatial nodes. According to my estimation, the probability of us taking a detour is 31%. However, whether it is true or not, we still need to observe more to know. Is there a way to find the correct way out? Ling Han asked. We need to observe more. Wally still said the same thing. Then there was no other way. They could only take more detours. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, Is there a way to detect the authenticity of those great beasts in advance? Yes. Wally nodded. Why didn't you say so earlier? Ling Han sighed. You didn't ask. Wally's expression was full of innocence. Moreover, I think that you are deliberately training your abilities in certain areas. Forget it. You'd better tell us how to distinguish the authenticity of these great beasts. Ling Han decided not to argue with him anymore. Wally did not speak, but released a circle of green light from his body. It shot out in all directions. This was a circular ripple, and a great beast just happened to be attacking. The ripple swept past, and there was no change. This is a fake, Wally said. As expected, when the great beast pounced over, it immediately disappeared. Everyone was shocked, and they walked towards Wally. Originally, they had agreed to let Wally come along because of Ling Han's strong request. Otherwise, why would someone who was not from a Super Emperor star come? However, now that Wally had revealed his abilities, everyone immediately looked at him in a different light. What ability is this? Everyone was curious. Wally was calm and explained, You determine the strength of a living being through its aura, and whether it is a living being or not, it is through the fire of life. However, these can all be faked. I'm different. I use biological waves, which can more accurately determine the strength of living beings, and also determine their strength. Everyone didn't quite understand. What do you mean by you? Are you different from us? You're a battle soldier, right? Lu Yufei suddenly said. Chapter 2545. Before Ling Han could stop him in time, he saw Vale nod and say, Yes. This guy didn't understand at all. He was lying. Everyone gasped in surprise. Although they knew about planes that focused on technology and had seen battle soldiers before, it was the first time they had seen one that looked like a person like Wall. Lu Yufei's eyes lit up, and she looked at Wall for a while before looking away. This little girl is not simple. She doesn't have any good intentions. The large black dog whispered into Ling Han's ear. Ling Han nodded. Lu Yufei's timing was too coincidental. She had come earlier, but this was probably her first time here. Moreover, the information she had was wrong. She did not know that the living blood of many Super Emperor stars was needed to open the door. Perhaps she had discovered Ling Han and the others when she was about to leave. Otherwise, with the poisonous miasma outside, would she have so many antidotes? At the very least, Ling Han did not know that this ancient historical remnant belonged to Celestial King Hifeng. But Lu Yufei was able to tell him so easily. She definitely had more information than Ling Han, and perhaps even more than Xiaoying Xiong and the others. Wall continuously released green ripples that spread into the distance in an orderly manner. A large beast appeared, but after the ripples swept past, there were obvious twists and turns. It's true, Wall said. He did things by the book. Since he had said that he would determine whether these large beasts were real or fake, he would carry out his orders to the letter. He did not care what others thought. When the large beast attacked, everyone attacked. Pung! This large beast was instantly blasted apart. It was indeed real. Now, everyone no longer had any doubts about Wall's abilities. Aren't battle soldiers all war machines? Su Huan asked. He was also a Super Emperor star, and his cultivation had reached the 6th heaven. Wall explained, I'm not a battle type but an analytical type. Ling Han hurriedly laughed. Wall could not hide any secrets at all, and he would answer whatever people asked. If they knew more of Wall's abilities, they might have evil intentions, and they might even find out that they were the ones who had stolen the heavenly-born cave abode. The large black dog did the same. He directly used his paw to seal Wall's mouth. Is there something you can't see? The Imperial Void Celestial King asked calmly. He stretched out a hand to grab the large black dog. How could a 9th Firmament Immortal King take action be ordinary? The large black dog roared angrily. Imperial Void Brat, do you think Grandpa Dog is afraid of you? It opened its mouth and spat out a black light. There were countless runes floating about, causing everyone to feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. The light was too terrifying. The Imperial Void Immortal King was fearless. Everyone was from the Celestial Realm. And in the Celestial Realm, he was one of the top existences in the 9 heavens. Countless stars flickered on his big hand, as if he had also turned into a big beast. Boom, boom, boom. After exchanging a few blows, the large black dog was forced to retreat. His strength was still inferior to that of the Royal Void Celestial King. Since you are an analytics-type battle weapon, why don't you give it to me? What is it that I am lacking that I am unable to break through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm? Imperial Void Immortal King asked Wall. In fact, he didn't have too much hope. The other party wasn't a Celestial Venerable, so how could he guide him? However, Wall interrupted him and said, I need a reward. The Imperial Void Immortal King laughed involuntarily. Do you really think that you can help me? Wall nodded. At the very least, I can point out your flaws. The Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't help but be tempted. He wasn't afraid that Wall would deceive him. He could suppress his opponent with a flip of his hand. He nodded slowly. What do you want? Immortal Metal, plain scroll, anything is fine. Wall replied casually. The Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't help but grimace. What, anything? There wasn't much immortal metal in a plane, especially after Heavenly Venerables emerged. They were all used to upgrade the devouring metal, so how much immortal metal would there be left? Even though he was a 9th Firmament Immortal King, he had only obtained 17 pieces of immortal metal. As for the plain scroll, even he didn't know what it was. 1 piece of immortal metal for 1 question, Wall continued. This involved a Heavenly Venerable, so the price was too high. He naturally had to sell it for a high price. Although the Imperial Void Immortal King was tempted, he didn't have any immortal metal in his hands. Did he have to shatter the ancient bell? However, if he could obtain the method to break through to Heavenly Venerable from Wall, then the ancient bell wouldn't be important to him anymore. So what if he gave it up? All right. He took out the ancient bell and threw it towards Wall. This is my treasure artifact. It's made from a total of 17 types of immortal metal. As long as your answer satisfies me, I can give it to you. However, if you deceive me, then don't blame me for being impolite. Wall didn't care at all. His eyes glowed with green light as he glanced at the ancient bell. He immediately shook his head. This immortal metal isn't pure. The essence is pitifully little. At most, it can be used as 5 pieces of immortal metal. The Imperial Void Immortal King was stunned. How could it not be pure? These 17 pieces of immortal metal were all smelted by him. How could he not know whether they were pure or not? Furthermore, how could impure immortal metal have such great power? Wasn't this a joke? As expected, you are deceiving me, he said coldly. Just like he said, how could a mere battle tool possibly know how to break through to Heavenly Venerable? He was deceiving him. Ling Han was secretly guilty. He naturally knew what was going on. It was because he had used the Divine Demon Sword to extract the ancient bell's essence of immortal metal previously, which was why the ancient bell had become impure. If the Imperial Void Immortal King knew what was going on, he would probably fight him to the death. The Imperial Void Immortal King brazenly moved, slapping towards Wall. This was only a battle tool. So what if he killed it? Even if it was reported to the Academy, he wouldn't be afraid. It wasn't like killing Ling Han or the others. In that case, he would have to silence them. Otherwise, as long as one of them returned and reported it to the Academy, even if Heavenly Venerable Fengqing appeared, it would be useless. He would definitely have to pay with his life. Without rules, nothing could be accomplished. No one could be an exception. He naturally didn't know that Wall was actually also a student of the Academy. This was Heavenly Venerable Zhou Heng's arrangement. Otherwise, he would have to first consider before making a move. How frightening was a 9th Heaven Celestial King. With a single strike, Wall was instantly turned into dust. Ling Han, the large black dog, and the Empress didn't have any intention of making a move. They knew that Wall's life force was incredibly strong. Previously, he had been shattered by the large black dog, but hadn't he still recovered? The crystallization of several hundred epochs in a plane couldn't possibly be so weak. Humph! The Imperial Void Immortal King smirked coldly. He flicked his sleeves, and even cast a baleful glance at Ling Han and the large black dog. The warning intent was clear. This was the consequence of making him unhappy. Yeah. But Xiaoying Xiong and the others immediately cried out in surprise. They saw that the fragments of wall seemed to have a life of their own, gathering in one direction. Then they fused together, turning into a massive ball. Then they grew out a hand, a leg, and a head. In the blink of an eye, Wall reappeared. Seeing this scene, even the Imperial Void Immortal King was stunned. He definitely hadn't thought that the person he had personally killed could actually be revived. Wall stared at the Imperial Void Immortal King. Red light shot out from his eyes. This was filled with destructive power, and its speed was incredibly fast. In an instant, it struck the Imperial Void Immortal King. Woo! The Imperial Void Immortal King released a muffled humph. Chapter 2546. A dead person coming back to life and unleashing a powerful attack. Even the Imperial Void Celestial King could not imagine such a scene. Moreover, the speed of the red light was too fast, so he was hit. 2 beams of light struck his chest, and immediately charred smoke rose. The Imperial Void Celestial King could not help but retreat. He lowered his head and saw that 2 holes had been burned into his clothes, and 2 more charred holes had appeared on his stomach. The beams went straight into his stomach and almost pierced through him. Damn! He charged at Wall, his killing intent instantly blazing. Die! He attacked again. Pung! The hateful attack of a 9th Heaven Celestial King was extremely terrifying, and Wall was instantly shattered again. However, countless fragments fused together, and Wall was about to come back to life. You still want to try? The Imperial Void Celestial King sneered, and added another attack. Pung Wall, who was still fusing together, exploded again. The Imperial Void Celestial King attacked again, and before Wall could reform into a human form, he had already destroyed him. However, if Wall was so easy to deal with, he would not be qualified to be the pride of a plane. The fragments no longer gathered in one direction, but 10. This was something that even the Imperial Void Celestial King did not expect. Although he had destroyed 7 of them in an instant, there were still 3 that formed, and they transformed into 3 miniature walls. At the same time, red light shot out from their eyes. The Imperial Void Celestial King dodged, but the route he dodged was actually within Wall's expectations. Only one of the beams missed, while the other 2 shot straight at him. Woo! Even the Imperial Void Celestial King could not help but cry out in pain. He was furious, and boundless celestial light burst forth from his body. Pung! The 3 miniature walls were instantly shattered. However, after this, 100 miniature walls formed at the same time, and each of them was extremely far away from each other. Even a 9th Heaven Celestial King could not kill all of them in one go. Xiao. Red light flashed wildly. The Imperial Void Celestial King did not dare to be careless, and had to deal with them with all his strength. Wall's strength seems to have increased greatly, Ling Han said to the large black dog. The large black dog nodded. His recovery speed has become much faster, and his attacks have also become many times more powerful. Even I have to put in more effort to suppress him. This damn dog simply loved to boast. One must know that it was slightly inferior to the Imperial Void Immortal King. But now, even the Imperial Void Immortal King was in such a sorry state. If it was this damn dog, it would definitely be at a greater disadvantage. Ling Han laughed. This guy has also refined a planar scroll that's over 1,000,000 years old. It would be strange if his strength didn't increase greatly. The planar plane scroll could allow a mortal to become an Empyrean. Although this Empyrean could only be said to be a representative of the heavens and earth, and the heavens and earth could take back their power at any time. As long as they remained in this position, their power would be at the genuine Empyrean level. Wally said that he needed 100 million years to digest the plane scroll. Now that more than 1,000,000 years had passed, he should have refined 1% of it. 1/100th of an Empyrean's strength wasn't impressive. It wasn't enough to make a 9th firmament immortal king suffer. Of course, Wali was definitely unable to perfectly absorb the power. However, even if he only had 1,000th or 10,000th of a heavenly venerate's might, he could still pose a threat to a ninth firmament immortal monarch. Indeed, Wali's defenses weren't high, and he could be easily shattered by celestial kings. However, his offensive prowess was similarly astonishing. Even the Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't completely block his attacks. Coupled with his recovery ability, which Celestial King wouldn't have a headache dealing with. Even when the Imperial Void Immortal King fought against Ji Wuming in his last life, he didn't have as much trouble fighting against Wali. In a sense, Wali was the same as innate nature. Both of them possessed terrifying recovery ability. Even a ninth firmament Celestial King couldn't do anything about it. What planar plane scroll? The large black dog asked. He still didn't know that such a good thing existed. Ling Han gave a simple explanation, and the large black dog's eyes instantly lit up. Quick, take it out and give it to me. Stop fooling around. Ling Han naturally wouldn't agree. If he lent it to the large black dog, it would be like throwing a meat bun at a dog. It would be a one-way trip. The large black dog looked at Wali enviously and murmured, "Should I go to that next plane and transform myself into a battle dog?" Ling Han rolled his eyes at him. The Imperial Void Immortal King was still fighting against Wali. From the looks of it, he had the upper hand, and he had shattered Wali countless times. However, no matter how many times Wali was destroyed, the Imperial Void Immortal King would be able to rapidly regenerate his body, and he was completely unharmed. Moreover, Wali's attacks couldn't be underestimated either. They had also caused significant injuries to the Imperial Void Immortal King. Right now, the Imperial Void Immortal King really wanted to stop the battle, but he was the one who had started the battle, so he couldn't bring himself to do so. Xiong and the others naturally understood this, and they all tried to mediate the battle, giving the Imperial Void Immortal King a way out. The battle stopped, and the Imperial Void Immortal King was furious. He felt that his face was slightly red, and he felt like exploding. A few days ago, when he was fighting against Ling Han, he had suffered a crushing defeat. At that time, he still had the excuse that it was because the 9 Extremes formation had suppressed his cultivation level, which gave Ling Han an opportunity to take advantage of him. But now, he was in his peak condition. Yet not only was he unable to do anything to Wali, but he was even in pain from Wali's attacks. This was truly humiliating. He didn't have the nerve to speak, and he remained silent with a dark expression. However, his desire to become a heavenly venerate became even stronger. Only by becoming a heavenly venerate would one truly be able to escape the control of heaven and earth, and surpass the regulations. Otherwise, he would be restricted. For example, the reason why Tianxing and Wali couldn't be killed was because their defenses and recovery abilities were at the peak of the regulations, and only the power of a heavenly venerate could break through them. Wali was still expressionless. Although he had caused a 9th heaven celestial king to feel extremely helpless and depressed, he didn't look pleased at all. Meanwhile, Xiong and the others were all stunned, and their opinion of Wali naturally became much higher. This guy's freakish talent was comparable to Tianxing's. Ling Han suddenly had a strange thought. If Wali and Tianxing were to fight, what would the result be? They would probably fight until the end of time without any result, the large black dog said. Then he changed the topic, and said, "Brat, we have to quickly cultivate the indestructible heaven scroll to the peak. Otherwise, our physiques will be surpassed by others." You've also cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll? Ling Han was surprised. "Nonsense, I cultivated it even earlier than you," the large black dog said proudly. "It's just that my bloodline was incompatible before, and my achievements were limited. Later, although I was forced to undergo a great nirvana, I obtained a drop of blood essence from a heavenly venerate as a foundation. Thus, I have no difficulty in cultivating the indestructible heaven scroll now." He paused. "Come to think of it, Grandpa Dog is your ancestor." Scram! Ling Han wanted to give him the middle finger, but he immediately asked in surprise, "Then why is my bloodline compatible?" He was curious why the Black Tower would find him. One had to know that in his last life, He was only strong in alchemy, and not just a little strong at that. His talent in martial art wasn't outstanding, and he couldn't even compare to the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Stupid, the large black dog snorted. Because you have the bloodline of the heavenly venerate born by fate. Impossible. Ling Han was shocked. Could it be that he was the descendant of Yi Yin? Stupid. The large black dog shook his head. Could it be that Lord Heavenly Venerate doesn't have cousins? Although there are some differences, there is a resonance of bloodline. Otherwise, why do you think the Tower of Three Realms insisted on flying to that small world of yours? Ling Han nodded. Previously, that small world had already come to the ancient realm by splitting open the sky, and then became a small world again. Could it be that it was the doing of the Tower of Three Realms? What else? The large black dog countered. But why was it separated by several epochs? Ling Han asked again. Nonsense. The Tower of Three Realms was already heavily wounded in the first place, and transforming the lower realm into a small world to hide from the Heavenly Venerate's divine sense had already exhausted its power. It could only slowly recover its power. Later, you just happened to find it, and only then did it merge with you. The large black dog said seriously. Reading on a cell phone is more refreshing. Chapter 2548. However, the current situation of the battle was urgent, so the Imperial Void Immortal King didn't think too much about it, and just charged forward with all his might. This was a small world created by the mighty power of a celestial king, but the area it covered was not small at all. They had advanced for 3 days, but they still had not reached the end. From the situation in the sky, the entire small world was like a cake, divided into 9 parts. The outside was big, the inside was small, and the 9 areas gathered together. And they were heading towards the central area. We still have about 2 more days of travel, everyone said while panting. Although the end was in sight, the ray of light figure was simply too big. Every step they took forward required them to kill countless enemies, so their speed was naturally extremely slow. They did not say any words of encouragement. If it was an immortal king or a super emperor star, they would not even have this much willpower. Then what qualifications did they have to reach this step and talk about becoming celestial lords? Everyone gritted their teeth. 2 days later, they finally reached the end of this region, the center of the entire world. There was a stone tablet covered with complicated patterns. Smear some blood on it, and you can break this formation, Lu Yufei said. Another drop of blood, thought suddenly welled up in Ling Han's mind. Because in the last section of the Immortal Path, it was said that there would be an opportunity that had not been seen since ancient times. In the end, countless immortal kings died, but in the end, such a monster was created. Could this be a trap too? Which one of those who had the qualifications to become a celestial lord wasn't a peerless hero? Could it be that they didn't give themselves a way out? Ji Wuming and Fire Hibiscus had the same expression on their faces. They were people who had personally experienced that battle. However, Xiaoying Xiong and the others did not have such misgivings. They smeared their blood on the stone tablet, causing it to emit a brilliant light. It's not enough, Lu Yufei urged. Everyone needs to drip a drop of blood, just like opening the door. Though Ling Han, the Empress, Ji Wuming, and the others were not very willing, the pressure they were under now was indeed too great, so they had no other choice. Otherwise, they could only retreat from this place. They cut their fingers and smeared their blood on it. The stone tablet grew brighter and brighter. When the last Empress smeared her blood on it, a pillar of light instantly shot up into the sky. It was incredibly bright. At the same time, all the light figures disappeared as if they had never existed. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They were exhausted from the continuous battles. They sat down and rested, trying to recover to their peak condition as soon as possible. Although the Imperial Void Celestial King was the vanguard, a Ninth Heaven Celestial King was too powerful. He and the large black dog were the first to recover. Then he took out the ancient bell and started to study it. His expression changed greatly, because the Qiangu bell seemed to have suffered great damage. He could clearly sense that the immortal gold power was no longer boundless. What's going on? This thought flashed through the Imperial Void Celestial King's mind, and he suddenly stared at Ling Han. He instinctively felt that this should be related to Ling Han, because the celestial artifact in Ling Han's hand was forged with devouring metal. Was it you? He immediately stood up and scolded Ling Han. A ninth firmament immortal king could do anything they wanted. They could do as they pleased without any qualms. Ling Han picked his ears and ignored him. Imperial Void, this is Grandpa Dog's underling. If you have anything to say, tell Grandpa Dog. The large black dog immediately jumped out. At this moment, only he could oppose the Imperial Void Celestial King. The Imperial Void Immortal King originally wanted to flare up, but he suddenly suppressed his rage. The most important thing now was to obtain the origin return to one fruit. If he could become a Celestial Venerable, he could abandon everything else. Although it was not confirmed yet, he believed that the remaining 8 regions still required the blood of everyone to activate the stone tablets. Thus, now was not the time to turn hostile. Being able to become a 9th Firmament Immortal King, the Imperial Void Immortal King naturally did not lack patience. He sat down again, appearing calm and nonchalant. Can we directly go to the next region from here? If they walked from here, the destination of the 2 neighboring regions was only 5 kilometers away. It was very close. They were just about to walk to the 2 sides, but they did not walk very far before they saw the light of the stone tablet suddenly dim, and the figure of light reappeared. They retreated a few more steps, and the stone tablet lit up again, and the figure of light disappeared again. Could it be that they could not leave? But if they could not leave, how could they activate the formation eyes of the other 8 regions? Everyone looked at Lu Yufei. Lu Yufei said, "Every stone tablet needs to be guarded by a living person to maintain its operation. And we also cannot take shortcuts. With the trap set up by Celestial King Hifeng, we must go around from the outside." Of course, this method was not absolutely effective. They believed that a Celestial Venerable would definitely be able to destroy it. But was there a need for a Celestial Venerable to come here? There was no Celestial Venerable among them, so there had to be someone left here. Who? I need to be the guide, and the 2 seniors of the 9th heaven need to be responsible for opening the path. Thus, the 3 of us must walk to the end, Lu Yufei continued. I'll stay behind, Lu Hao said. When all 9 formation eyes were activated, the door leading to the center would open, and there would be the origin return to one fruit, as well as the insights of martial art that Celestial King Hifeng had left behind. Thus, there was no disadvantage in staying here. On the contrary, they could also conserve their energy. Lu Hao stayed behind, and he sat beside the stone tablet. The others tried to leave, and sure enough, although they had walked a very long distance, the stone tablet was still releasing a pillar of light that soared into the sky, and did not show any signs of dimming. Lu Yufei was not wrong about this, at least. Ling Han and the others still tried, wanting to directly enter the 2 regions on the side from here, but they could not. It seemed like they could directly pass through, but there was an invisible wall separating them, and even the Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog could not pass through. This was a method that surpassed Celestial King tier, and this did not disappoint them. Instead, they were filled with anticipation. The stronger Celestial King Hifeng was, the more precious the things he had left behind. They walked out of this region, and because there were no light figures blocking their way, their speed was very fast, and they left this region in about an hour. Now they had 2 choices: enter the region on the left or the region on the right. Go clockwise, Lu Yufei said. Everyone listened. At least she had already proved that her understanding of the situation here was far greater than that of the others. Of course, no one would completely believe Lu Yufei. It was necessary to be on guard against others, and moreover, the 2 sides could not be said to understand each other at all. They walked clockwise and entered the second region. This place was filled with haze and gales were blowing. They could be seen clearly with the naked eye. Numerous vortexes were spinning, and there were seals flashing in the center. Let's go. They stepped into the vortex. A gust of wind blew over, and apart from the Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog, Everyone else was blown into the air, drifting backward. Pung pung pung. Everyone fell to the ground. The Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog both put up a light shield around them and fought fiercely against the gales, appearing very calm. Everyone entered this region again, and this time, they all activated their regulations to fight against the gales. This time, it was really like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each displaying their own abilities. Celestial kings that were proficient in earth element regulations were the easiest to deal with. They directly made themselves incomparably heavy, so the gales could not move them. But those that cultivated other regulations could not, and could only activate their regulations to fight against the gales. This would undoubtedly consume their source power even faster, but there was no other way. They advanced with all their might. Fortunately, although the gales here were astonishingly strong, there were no existences like the light figures lying in ambush. Otherwise, it would really be difficult for them to advance. Chapter 2549. Whoosh, a large whirlwind drifted toward them. This whirlwind was extraordinarily large. Just the diameter of the whirlwind's eye was several thousand meters. The seal in the center was faintly discernible, and it exuded a terrifying aura. Everyone wanted to dodge, but their speed in the whirlwind was already slow, and the whirlwind was extraordinarily fast. It also covered a vast area, so how could they possibly dodge it? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So what if they were 9th firmament immortal kings? They were easily swept up and sent flying. All of them crashed far away. Celestial King Imperial Void and the large black dog were fine, and they immediately steadied themselves, but the others could not. When the wind behind them blew, they were directly sent flying out of this area. Seeing this, Celestial King Imperial Void and the large black dog also retreated. Just the 2 of them were definitely not enough to activate the formation's eye. Even if they walked to the end, it would be useless. As expected of someone who can become a celestial venerable, Celestial King Imperial Void had to admit that he was impressed. He should not be a 9th heaven celestial king, but a pseudo-celestial venerable. Just now, I seem to have been attacked by a dozen 9th heaven celestial kings at the same time. That's why I lost my footing. Come, we can't act rashly. Even Celestial King Imperial Void said so. So advancing with an iron head was clearly a foolish idea. Wall, can you calculate a safe route? Everyone looked at Wall, and even 9th heaven celestial kings had to bow their heads to him. Wall looked ahead, his eyes constantly flashing. It was clear that he was calculating, but after a long while he shook his head. There's no pattern to follow. What should they do? Even Wall had no idea. Could it be that they could only rely on luck? It's impossible that there's no way, Lu Yufei said reluctantly. She had put in a lot of effort for this historical site. How could she be willing to retreat now? Of course there's a way. A voice suddenly sounded behind them. Everyone turned around and saw that a 9th heaven celestial king had suddenly appeared behind them. He looked like a middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing. This was very normal. To become a 9th heaven celestial king, he was at least a monarch. Naturally, his aura was astonishing. Lu Yufei's expression immediately changed. She recognized who this person was. Hirunhai. For the past 700,000 years she had been with him. First they had taken each other as a disciple, and then they had an ambiguous relationship. Their relationship was between lovers and disciples. You are. Imperial Void Immortal King clasped his hands and greeted the other party. Hirunhai smiled faintly and didn't give Lu Yufei another look. He said, I am Hirunhai. How everyone was slightly surprised. The owner of this ancient site was also surnamed He. Moreover, why did Hirunhai want to open the historical remnant by himself? No matter what, he needed the blood of 10 or so Super Emperor stars. That's right, the owner of this ancient site is my ancestor. Hirunhai didn't hide it, and admitted it openly. True enough. However, first, it was Lu Yufei who understood the situation very well. Now, it was a direct descendant of Hifeng Immortal King. The whole thing seemed to have become even more complicated. Only then did Hirunhai say to Lu Yufei, Disciple, why didn't you greet your master before coming out? Lu Yufei's expression changed again and again. In the end, she smiled sweetly and said, "Master, you are busy cultivating all day, trying to improve even further. How would your disciple dare to disturb you?" These two are master and disciple. No wonder Lu Yufei was so familiar with the situation here. She must have gotten the information from He Feng's descendant. What ancient book? It was all a lie. However, no one had ever trusted Lu Yufei, so they didn't have much of a reaction. After all, they weren't close friends who needed to know each other's secrets. What did Brother He say? Are you going to chase us out? Imperial Void Immortal King asked. He Runhai smiled. If I wanted to chase you out, why would I show myself? If I didn't do anything, even if you all reached the 9th heaven, it would be useless even if you all worked together. However, to be honest, the method that my ancestors set up was to test the He family's descendants. Only by producing enough Super Emperor stars can we open the treasury he left behind. It's a pity that Super Emperor stars don't appear so easily. Not even one appears after several epochs. From what he said, it seemed that he wasn't a Super Emperor star. Without enough Super Emperor stars, can we activate the remaining steels? Su Huan asked. Don't worry. The number of Super Emperor stars needed to activate the formation core is less and less. It'll be fine as long as there are people on the side, He Runhai explained. Then please show us what you can do, senior, everyone said. He Runhai nodded and took out a flag. The body of the flag was half broken, and it was stained red with blood. It gave off a mournful aura. Back then my ancestor almost died in battle. After he was heavily injured, his subordinates wrapped his body in a flag and sent him back to the family. He only woke up after 300 million years. It was also that time that my ancestor obtained the mysteries of the celestial peaking realm and began to break through to the highest stage. I really don't know if that was a blessing or a misfortune. Later on, my ancestor became a quasi-celestial venerate, but all his efforts were in vain. He Runhai sighed, a look of pity on his face. Quasi-celestial venerates were actually quite powerful. Although the number of celestial venerates in the Frostfire plane was quite sizable, that was a gathering of the top experts of countless planes. There wouldn't be too many of them in each plane, even in high-grade planes. In that case, quasi-celestial venerates were indeed very powerful. The others couldn't say anything. After all, they were eyeing the relic of their ancestor. Fortunately, He Runhai only sighed ruefully. Very quickly, he pulled himself together and waved the flag. Instantly it started to flutter. Stand behind me. With the Celestial King flag fluttering, you won't have to fear the hurricanes. He strode into the hurricane. Sure enough, the hurricanes automatically moved away when they touched the flag, as if they had eyes of their own. Everyone hurriedly followed him, taking shelter under the protection of the flag. They advanced steadily, and Ling Han looked to both sides. The hurricanes howled wildly, and everything here was extremely blurry. The visibility was less than 3 meters. Damn dog, take it easy. This He Runhai seems to be waiting for us here. Something feels off. Ling Han sent a voice transmission to the large black dog. Grandpa Dog knows. The large black dog's expression didn't change. However, I can tell that he indeed wants the relic left behind by our ancestor. Come, let's see who's the real devil. Moreover, the relationship between Lu Yufei and this master of hers seems to be quite strange. Ling Han nodded. He had the dimensional scroll, and he could take it out at a critical moment to scare people. At most, he would just summon the heavenly venerate tribulation, who wouldn't be afraid. This area was originally impossible to pass through, but with He Feng's descendants using his battle flag as cover, it became the easiest part of the journey. Only a day later, they arrived at the end of this area. Sure enough, there was also a stone tablet here. Everyone wiped their blood on it, and the hurricanes immediately stopped. Although the haze had not disappeared, the visibility had greatly increased. Who's staying? Chapter 2550. Everyone looked at each other. In the end, Su Huan said, "Me." He sat cross-legged beside the stone tablet, like an old monk meditating, and no longer made any sound. Everyone nodded. Actually, The people who stayed here were the most relaxed. They didn't have to do anything. Was that really the case? Ling Han purposely didn't mention he run high. Instead, he let Wally record and analyze it. He had a special way to do it. After a while, Wally said, according to my analysis of He Ruinhai's micro-expressions, he revealed a cold smile just now. He paused for a while, then asked, why did he sneer? He did analyze it, but he didn't know why. The human heart was something that he could never understand. Ling Han nodded and said, this guy is definitely hiding something from us. Grandpa Dog is watching him, the big black dog said. Wally still didn't understand. Why did he sneer? Ling Han thought for a while and said, if you're stronger than the enemy, but the enemy captured your lover and forced you to bind yourself, or else he would kill your lover, would you obey? Of course not. Wally shook his head. This is the simplest behavior judgment. If I also lose my ability to fight, then both my lover and I will die. I have to maintain my peak condition to be able to save my lover. Your answer is very reasonable, but also too reasonable. Ling Han shook his head. The reason why humans are humans and not machines is because they have feelings. When an evil person holds a knife to his lover's neck, many people will compromise. Wally was speechless. After a while he asked, then what will you do? Ling Han laughed. I will avoid such a situation, so I don't need to answer this question. Humans also have a very bad habit, and that is to escape, Wally complained. While they were talking, they had already left the second area. They continued to move according to the clock, and arrived at the third area. This place was densely covered with lightning, rumbling and terrifying. We have to force our way through, He Runhai said. Fortunately, its power is only around the 5th layer of the heavenly layer. If we pay a little more attention, we can deal with it. He had long since put away his war flag, and strode into the lightning region. Quang quang quang. It was as if countless heavenly tribulations had fused together. Tens of thousands of feet-long lightning bolts continuously struck down with terrifying might. Everyone walked in one by one. Because of the terror of the heavenly tribulation, everyone instinctively felt nervous. Fortunately, the might of the lightning was as strong as Runhai had said. It was only at the level of a 5th firmament immortal king. This was not too difficult for them to match. Even though Ling Han, Ji Wuming, and company were only at the 3rd firmament realm, their combat strength was just too powerful. All of them could fight 5th firmament immortal monarchs. The lightning was terrifying. It struck down like a heavenly spear or an earth sword. Xiaoing Xiong and company could ignore it, but 3rd firmament immortal kings like Ling Han and Ji Wuming had to use all their strength to withstand it. Fortunately, the higher one's cultivation was, the more frequently they would be struck by the lightning. Thus, Xiaoing Xiong and company didn't have it much easier than Ling Han and company. Only the large black dog, and the other 2 9th-layer celestial kings, were able to handle the lightning with ease. Ling Han unleashed his will, and battled against the lightning. He had already walked his own path, and formed his own unique will. It was just that he hadn't mastered it yet. Now, every battle was an opportunity for him to perfect his Tao. The stronger his opponent was, the greater his improvement would be. This was what it meant to be a genius. Difficulties wouldn't crush one's body, and they would only become stronger and stronger. Pung! Ling Han casually threw out a punch. It seemed simple, but it was just enough to extinguish the lightning. He didn't waste any energy at all. Huh! Wally's eyes lit up, and he scanned Ling Han from head to toe. He was an extremely special existence. As he walked in this lightning region, not a single lightning bolt struck him. Unless he was unlucky, and a lightning bolt struck him when he landed. What? Ling Han asked casually. After Wally's eyes flashed for a while, he stopped and said, a long time ago, I tested your evolution index. At that time, it was only 10. But now, your evolution index is as high as 11.94. Ling Han was also surprised. He knew that he had made great progress when he broke through to the Celestial King tier, and his evolution index must have skyrocketed. And the Empress and Hunyo were proof. They were originally only Emperor stars, but now they had become Super Emperor stars. Cultivating a perfect celestial seed that belonged to oneself was a kind of evolution of the level of life. But the higher one went, the harder it was to evolve. For example, the Empress and Hunyeo could make their evolution index surpass 11, but Ling Han's evolution index might only increase by 0.6 or 0.7, so it shouldn't be enough to reach 12. Could it be? Previously, he had comprehended his own path during his battle with the Imperial Void Celestial King, and that even triggered the heavenly tribulation of the fiery frost plane. This also caused his level of life to increase, and thus his evolution index was infinitely close to 12. Ling Han couldn't help but feel itchy. What level had his current battle prowess reached? If he went to challenge the 9 Deaths formation again now, what kind of result could he obtain? What brat, your evolution index has reached 12. The large black dog was given a fright. In the celestial realm, there was no such thing as evolution index or vitality index, but this was especially popular in middle-grade planes, and especially in high-grade planes. It almost had the tendency to replace cultivation levels. After arriving at the fiery frost plane, the large black dog naturally knew what these two indexes represented. Evolution Index 12 could definitely make him a celestial venerable. Ling Han chuckled and walked towards the fire hibiscus. At the beginning, his aptitude couldn't be considered very good, but through his own efforts, he became a king tier, emperor tier, and monarch tier step by step, increasing his level of life. But it was said that the fire hibiscus shocked the world the moment she was born, and even before she advanced into the celestial king tier, she had already received the praise of the greatest celestial of all times. This was the true favored child of the heavens. He wondered if he, an acquired prodigy, or this favored child of the heavens, who was stronger. In the past, the fire hibiscus had suppressed Ling Han in terms of regulations, but now, Ling Han truly had the qualifications to rival those at the same cultivation level. Starting from the celestial venerable tier, is there anyone whose evolution index has reached 13? Or in other words, every step taken in the celestial venerable tier represents a super evolution of life level. Kwang. Just as these thoughts were flying through his mind, a few more bolts of lightning struck down. Ling Han easily destroyed them, but the Empress was slightly strained. She had already drawn out her celestial tool, and sword chi flashed, her battle prowess instantly soaring. With or without a celestial tool, the battle prowess of a celestial king could be said to be completely different. Ji Wuming and the fire hibiscus both had celestial tools, and in times of danger, they naturally did not hesitate to use them. They also drew out their celestial tools to resolve their own predicament. They advanced forcefully, and after a mere 2 days, they arrived at the end of this region. They were all astonished because at the end of the region, there was actually a giant currently sitting on a stone tablet. He was a full 30 meters tall, and his whole body was densely covered with blue lightning, forming a series of seals. Although he was humanoid, he did not have any facial features, nor did he have any male or female characteristics. He could only be described as humanoid. Yo, aren't you afraid that your ass will be pierced by sitting like this? The large black dog immediately said with a naughty smile. This lightning giant was sitting on the stone tablet, but the stone tablet was flat and long, and it just happened to be in the groove of his butt. Chapter 2552. Terrifying explosions rang out everywhere. Everyone couldn't even run away, because the fruits were coming at them from all directions. There was no such thing as a safe route. All of them were shaken to the point where they were fluttering in the air like rice straws. It was as if their bodies were no longer their own, and they couldn't control them at all. After a dozen breaths of time, the violent explosion finally stopped. The previously lush ground had turned into a true land of death. All the plants had been destroyed, leaving only scorched black. On the other hand, everyone was lying on the ground in disorder. No one could avoid bleeding. The 3/9 firmament immortal monarchs were still fine. They only suffered some superficial injuries, but the others were in a much worse state. Many of their bones were broken. Ling Han released the hand that was holding the Empress. In the great explosion just now, he had tightly shielded the Empress with his body, while he himself had channeled the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Though his injuries were not very serious, it was still unavoidable that he was covered in blood. Wally's body immediately fell apart, but he was the one who needed the least care. His body immediately reassembled as if nothing had happened. Everyone was aghast at this display of strength. How are we supposed to move forward? Everyone didn't care about this for now. They all took out medicinal pills and swallowed them. Some of them were seriously injured. The elixirs they had consumed were all extraordinary, and their injuries were rapidly recovering. But soon, everyone revealed a look of shock. That was because the originally scorched black ground was now growing green. Small saplings and grass were breaking through the soil, growing extremely quickly. In just half a day, the sapling had already grown to a height of several zhang, and the grass had also grown to the height of half a person. At the same time, flowers had bloomed. This after the flowers bloomed, they would naturally bear fruit. The colorful fruits would reappear, and this place would return to how it was before. Everyone hurriedly retreated. Advancing was, of course, an act of courting death. There were more plants there. Several days later, everyone finally recovered. The vegetation in the area had also completely recovered. It was as if they had returned to the starting point. Come, we can only rely on one person. Everyone looked towards Wally. What do you want? Even if Wally didn't understand human nature, he could still instinctively feel that these people were up to no good. Go! Imperial Void Immortal King took the initiative to grab Wall and tossed him forward. Boom! Another huge explosion occurred. This was really too terrifying. Even though everyone was standing outside, they could still feel the surging shockwaves of the explosion. These shockwaves contained rune fragments, which greatly increased the destructive power. Fortunately, they were not at the center of the explosion, so they were not greatly affected. After the explosion stopped, a large area once again turned into a wasteland. It was a scorched land, and Wally quickly recovered. His body reformed, and he returned to his human form. Of course, Varley was furious. His eyes were about to light up. A piece of immortal gold, Ling Han said. Wally immediately stopped, thought carefully, and bargained. $3. 2, no more than that, Ling Han said resolutely. All right. Wally took the initiative to move forward. Boom! He caused another huge explosion. At this time, Wally's evildoer would appear. No matter how terrifying the destructive power was, it would not be able to cause any fatal damage to him. He would recover immediately after the explosion. Every time Wally exploded a safe area, everyone would advance 1 square. How fast they could advance depended on Wally's recovery speed. Everyone could not help but sigh. This kind of recovery speed was too terrifying. No wonder he was pursued by so many people in the innate martial institution. Without a heavenly sovereign acting against him, he was completely unkillable. A day later, they finally reached the end of this area. They saw a stone stele wrapped in vines, and it was filled with purple fruits. This time, Wally did not need to go up. Everyone shook the air and detonated these fruits. It was unknown what material the stone stele was made of, but it was incredibly sturdy. It was not destroyed by the explosion and remained unscathed. Everyone dripped blood on it. The plants in the entire area seemed to have received some kind of signal, and they all sunk into the ground, causing this area to become barren. I'll stay, a super emperor star said. He was called Ji Jihong, and he did not like to talk. He had been silent the entire time, and no one expected him to take the initiative to ask for help. This was normal. After all, opening or closing the formation's eyes in every area was too laborious, and there were no benefits. Who would be willing to do such a thing? It was better to stay here. It was safe and worry-free. Moreover, when the formation completely stopped operating, the restrictions would no longer exist. It would be extremely convenient to go anywhere in this central area. Ling Han could not help but glance at He Run High. Although this person was smiling peacefully, he felt that there was a hint of malice in his eyes. We definitely will not stay. No matter what, we have to keep an eye on him and Lu Yufei, he said. The large black dog nodded. He was naturally shrewd. Although it was hard and tiring to break through with He Run High, he could take the initiative. The Empress naturally would not object. She only cared about Ling Han. They left this area, and arrived at the fifth area. This was a land of flames. Raging flames soared into the sky. Before they even entered, they could already feel a terrifyingly high temperature, causing their skin to feel a strong burning sensation. This seems to be the flames of the Earth's core. It can even melt divine metal, Guhui said. Then how do we cross it? In terms of defense, there was nothing stronger and more resistant to fire than divine metal. If these flames could even melt divine metal, then even a ninth heaven celestial king would frown. It could last for a period of time, but there would be a time when its source power would be exhausted. At that time, even a ninth heaven celestial king would be refined into slag. It was just like how Ling Han's physique was invincible among his peers, but he could still use regulations to slowly refine it. Everyone was heading towards He Runhai. What else could he do? He Runhai chuckled. He took out a jade bottle and said, I said that I can help everyone. This is the frigid ice spring that I collected from the 9 hells. It can temporarily extinguish the flames. This guy was indeed well prepared. Lu Yufei lowered her gaze, her eyes filled with shock. She had thought that she had already grasped all the information about this ancient site, but now that she saw that He Runhai was so well prepared, she realized that she only knew bits and pieces. She understood He Runhai very well. He was definitely an ambitious person who would do anything to achieve his goals. Anyone could be sacrificed. Come. He Runhai took the lead. He waved the jade bottle, and a large amount of eerie water splashed out. As soon as the water splashed onto the flames, they were instantly extinguished. 9 hells yellow spring water, the large black dog muttered. His eyes were extremely bloodshot. This is good stuff. It can even seal a 9th heaven celestial king. Ling Han, on the other hand, was astonished. This guy is really willing to go all out. He even took out such a precious thing. If you can't sacrifice the child, you can't catch the wolf. He must be aiming for something even greater. The large black dog nodded. But we also have 2 9th heaven celestial kings here. Not only are they not weaker than him, but they are also stronger. Isn't he afraid that he'll just be making a gift for someone else? That means that he definitely has a way to keep things in check and ensure his own benefits. Ling Han and the large black dog were certain of this. We have to be more careful around him. Chapter 2553. Now that they had a way to restrain it, they quickly arrived at the end of this zone. As usual, they wiped their blood on the stone tablet to activate it. This time, there was a serious disagreement over who should stay. No one wanted to stay, and they all wanted to advance. It should be known that in the previous zone, there were several people who wanted to stay, but in the end, only Ji Zhihong had spoken first. Why did everyone's attitude suddenly change? Naturally, it was because He Runhai was too well prepared. They were not idiots, so they naturally found it suspicious. Who would pay such a huge price just to benefit someone else? Hence, everyone wanted to follow He Runhai closely and take the initiative. He Runhai chuckled and said, If no one is willing to stay, it's not like I'm out of ideas. He waved his hand and immediately a person fell out. This was a celestial king, but he was only at the 2nd heaven, and he was currently unconscious. There were actually other celestial kings hidden in his body. However, this celestial king clearly did not follow him willingly. Instead, he had been coerced, and his consciousness had even been suppressed. Everyone was even more astonished. He Runhai had even thought of this in advance. He Runhai had transformed the regulations into chains and tied the 2nd heaven celestial king to the stone tablet. This way, even if the 2nd heaven celestial king woke up due to an accident, he would not be able to leave the range of the stone tablet. Let's go, He Runhai said with a smile and led the way. Everyone looked at each other, but at this time, they could not and were not willing to retreat, so they all followed He Runhai. No matter what, He Runhai was only a 9th heaven celestial king, and not a celestial venerable. As long as the large black dog, or the Imperial Void Celestial King were here, he could not play too many tricks. They followed closely and left this place. The 6th zone was a world of ice and frost. Not only was the ground covered in ice, but there was also snow falling from the sky. Needless to say, This place was extremely cold. Perhaps even 4th or 5th heaven celestial kings would be frozen into popsicles. Everyone looked at He Run High, wondering if he could take out some flames of the great Tao to resist the bitter cold. However, He Run High smiled bitterly and said, "Everyone, although I have made some preparations, my ability is limited, and I can't take care of everything. Let me." Fire Hibiscus walked out. Hong, a green flame soared into the sky. She had released her origin flame, which transformed into a screen of fire above her head. The origin source flame could reach the limit in the nomological plane. Even though the fire hibiscus had not reached the 9th firmament, this origin source flame was extremely powerful. The Imperial Void Celestial King and He Run High both directly entered the world of ice and snow. They were very arrogant, and they disdained to let a junior take care of them. However, the large black dog was completely shameless, and he walked into the area enveloped by the flames without the slightest care. The fire hibiscus advanced, and everyone followed suit. Origin flames surged to resist the bitter cold. Even so, they were so cold that their lips were trembling, and their faces were ghastly pale. There was nothing they could do. There was ice on the ground. Even though they were floating a few feet above the ground, cold air still seeped up from the soles of their feet and froze their blood. If they resisted with all their might, at least they had the strength to continue forward. But as they walked, they found that it was getting colder and colder. Their feet had left the ground, but the coldness in the air was even more frightening. They had no choice but to descend. In comparison, they might as well be stepping on ice. They walked, and suddenly there was a cracking sound. Xiaoingxiong's figure lowered, and he sank into the ground. Gu Hui was the closest, and he hurriedly stretched out a hand to grab Xiaoingxiong. He saw that there was a large hole under his feet, and Xiaoingxiong just happened to step on this hole, causing him to fall into it. A celestial king had actually fallen for such a trick? There was nothing he could do. This cold air was actually formed by the interweaving of the nomological plane, and it formed an extremely great pressure on his body. His feet suddenly became empty, and he naturally could not stop himself. Although everyone was shivering from the cold, they still worked together to pull Xiaoingxiong up. "Be careful, there are traps at every step here." Their advancing speed became even slower. If they took a single wrong step, they might be doomed eternally. Wally's eyes shone, and he continuously scanned the surroundings. The green light transformed into a series of ripples. Very soon, everyone discovered that after the green light passed, a shadowy area appeared. "The ice there is very thin," Wally reminded them. Actually, even without his reminder, everyone already knew that there was a situation there. Naturally, they would not go there. With Wally's help, the pressure on everyone was greatly reduced. Although they were still being corroded by the bitter cold, at least it was still within an acceptable range. However, good times did not last long. Pung! A loud sound reverberated from afar, causing the ground to tremble violently. "What's the situation?" Everyone stopped. Pung pung pung. The sound got closer and closer. Crack crack crack. The ice was also shattering, and the cracks extended all the way here from afar. They all hurriedly moved away, because there was a lake below their feet. If they fell into it, it would definitely be terrible. A white gigantic creature appeared. It was about 7 to 8 zhang tall, and its entire body was covered with snow-white fur. It was actually a huge bear. There was no celestial light surrounding this bear, but the aura it emitted was incomparably terrifying. It was comparable to a high-level celestial king. Humph! He Run High immediately acted. He took out a saber and slashed out. Shwa, saber chi soared into the sky. Pa! That huge bear was instantly sliced into two. There was no rain of blood, no heaven and earth mourning. This was clearly not a true celestial king. It was not an celestial king, but it had the aura of an celestial king. This was extremely strange. This shouldn't be a true life form. It's more like a puppet, Xiaoingxiong muttered. Everyone nodded. This should be the most reasonable explanation. They were all glad that there were 9th firmament celestial kings on this trip. Otherwise, the pressure would be too great if they had to fight a high-level celestial king in such an environment. Along the way, even more white bears appeared. However, The 3 ninth firmament celestial kings took turns to kill them. This allowed them to reach the end of the 6th region without any mishaps. When they wiped their blood on the stone steel, they discovered that their hands were almost numb from the cold. Fortunately, the stone steel was immediately activated. Instantly, the cold completely dissipated, and this region was also resolved. Fire Hibiscus retracted her origin fire. Hirunhai didn't even ask any questions. He directly threw out in Celestial King, and used the power of the law to bind him to the stone steel. They then went to the 7th region. This was a sea of swords. Not only were the ground filled with swords, but there were also sword lights streaking through the sky. They were incomparably sharp, causing everyone to frown. This sword might was extremely terrifying. It could not be underestimated. With 3 ninth firmament celestial kings leading the way, they still passed through this region and activated the 7th stone steel. Next was the 8th region. It was a black muddy ground that emitted a foul stench and was filled with poison. When everyone walked over, they immediately discovered that their protective laws were rapidly fading. What a powerful corrosive effect. However, Hirunhai was prepared this time. He stuck a leaf on each of them. It was plucked from the Heaven and Earth Origins tree. It had a powerful detoxifying effect. Next was the 9th region. As long as they activated the stone steel here, they would be able to open Immortal King, Hefeng's final treasure trove. And at that time, it was time for those with ulterior motives to reveal their true intentions. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.